Well, I hate to break this to you, but money isn't actually made of paper, which also proves that money doesn't actually grow on trees. Most banknotes are 25% linen and 75% cotton, which is why they have such a distinct look and feel. Back in the 19th century, money was made of parchment paper. That's why people could very easily counterfeit it, unlike now. The Eiffel Tower is almost 6 inches taller during the summer. When you heat up some substance, its particles start to move more actively and take up a bigger volume. That's something they call thermal expansion. When the temperature lowers, the substance contracts again. Such an effect is more prominent in gases, but you can also track it in liquids and solids, including iron. Because of this, people build large structures like bridges using expansion joints. They allow a structure some leeway to expand and contract, and such changes don't cause any damage. Wow, I have some pants like that. Now, honey can last for thousands of years without going bad. Bees land on flowers to collect sugary nectar. Then they transport it back to their hive and transfer it to other worker bees. These bees reduce the water content of the nectar by repeatedly drinking and regurgitating the liquid. Bee barf. Special enzymes in their stomachs break down the glucose in the nectar, and it becomes more acidic. Bees deposit this nectar in the honeycomb and start fanning it with their wings so that the water evaporates more quickly. The honey is now highly acidic and low in water content, which keeps it safe from spoiling. The bacteria that can cause the rest of the food to go off can't survive in such conditions. Now, a long time ago, people didn't elevate their mattresses off the floor. This practice started in ancient Egypt and continued in many other cultures. People realized it was cold on the floor, and they could warm their beds easier if they were off the ground. Houses used to be more drafty. Cold air came in from under the doors. There was no central heating, so people had to find other ways to stay warm. Warm air tends to rise, and if you're positioned higher, you won't be as cold as on the floor. Also, this way, people could keep their beds clean more easily. In simple homes, floors used to be way dirtier than today, and all that dirt usually migrated into beds. Continuing now to talk dirty, do you think people are naturally clean and tidy? After all, our ancestors, who lived thousands of years ago, already used latrines and were tidying their hair with combs, and they kept their homes and themselves clean. Our natural need for hygiene and cleanliness is driven by our sense of disgust. That's the very mechanism that helps our bodies stay safe and protects them from different infections. That's why we're more sensitive to certain smells and things. But we still have some pretty sloppy habits. For example, eating snacks over a keyboard. Ew! I certainly never do that. But there are animals that are even neater than us humans. For example, rattlesnakes like to keep their surroundings tidy. Some of them even use their muscular necks and triangular heads to sweep aside messy grass when they hunt. Many animals like to clear their path when going after their future meal. Reptiles too. Less vegetation increases their chances of catching food. Songbirds also prefer to keep it neat and get rid of uneaten food, eggshells, and other trash in their nests. This way, they also make their homes less visible to their enemies. Meanwhile, out in space, shadows are darker on the moon than on our planet. That's because the atmosphere on Earth scatters more sunlight. But if you could visit the moon, you'd observe shadows so dark you wouldn't be able to see where you were going. Also, you'd notice fresh footprints on the lunar surface. People haven't set foot there in a few decades, but the footprints look as if they were left just yesterday. Since there's no water or wind on the moon, nothing can erase these footprints. So they stay there in their original form for millions of years. So be careful where you step, huh? Earth's core contains enough gold to coat the entire planet. And if you decided to do this, the level of this precious metal would be knee-high. For thousands of years, people have been mining gold and platinum, together with a bunch of other precious metals, from underneath our planet's surface. That's why we have depleted some of the minerals in certain areas. But Earth still has a huge number of such deposits, especially if you get closer to its core. That's because of countless meteorites that collided with our planet during the period of its formation. Those meteorites contain different minerals, including gold. Back then, Earth was still in its molten state, which is why most of the gold, a heavy element, sank deep into its core. And the silicate mantle, positioned over the core, trapped really huge amounts of gold and some other minerals. Unfortunately, most of them are kind of out of reach now, since we talk about 1,800 miles below the surface and temperatures of thousands of degrees. Too hot, in other words. Sure, if you were about to go into space, one of the first things you'd think of would be your spacesuit. But do you know that it's possible to survive in space even if you aren't wearing any protection? Well, don't get your hopes up yet. You'd last for no more than 15 seconds. That's how long it would take you to lose consciousness, because oxygen will stop coming to your brain. In 1965, one technician accidentally depressurized his suit inside a vacuum chamber. He lost consciousness after 12 to 15 seconds. 27 seconds later, his suit luckily got repressurized. The man later said that he remembered the moisture on his tongue started to boil. He also lost his sense of taste, and it didn't come back until 4 days after the accident. Now, you can't hold your breath in space either, so that won't save you. Your lungs will rupture at one point because the air inside will expand. The oxygen in other parts of your body will start to expand too, which means you will balloon up to twice your regular size, almost like Dudley Dursley's Aunt Marge from Harry Potter. Well, not quite. You won't explode, only thanks to your elastic skin. It will keep holding you together, and the liquids in your body will start vaporizing pretty quickly too. Doesn't that sound pleasant? No! The ocean has its iconic blue color thanks to sunlight. When the sun shines, the water absorbs longer orange and red wavelengths of light and reflects shorter blue light waves. This is only possible when there's a huge amount of water. So, the more water you have in one place, the bluer it becomes. That's why the water you pour in your glass has nothing in common with this beautiful ocean blue color. The ocean performs many important functions. For one thing, it produces 50 to 80% of all the oxygen on our planet, which means it keeps us alive. But it also helps the internet to function. So, when you're laughing at a funny dog video or binge-watching your favorite series, yup, thank the ocean for that. The majority of the cables that power the internet, and therefore allow people from all over the world to use it, run underwater. Those are submarine communications cables, miles and miles of wiring crisscrossing the ocean floor. There are special boats for putting all that in place. They're designed specifically for that purpose. To make sure nothing damages the cables and your internet, people need to put them on relatively flat stretches of the ocean floor. The cables also need to be away from old shipwrecks or large ocean ecosystems. Some of these cables have a special coating that protects them from damage. This way, no hungry sharks or curious fish have a chance to munch on the wiring. Now, trees talk. Well, not exactly like people do, but they have their own way of communication. Their roots are connected through an underground network of fungi. That network got its name of the Wood Wide Web. Thanks to this network, trees can share resources with one another. That's how they talk. They use these fungi to transmit nutrients and water from one tree to another. For example, there's a mother tree or another tree that's stronger and older than others in the forest. So it shares some of its nutrients and sugars with small trees growing nearby. Thanks, Mom! Now look at all these insects flying around on a nice sunny day. Do you think they get sunburned? Well, those that spend most of their time in the open don't. They have dark exoskeletons that contain melanin. That's how they block UV rays. But insects that live underground and in the water, or nocturnal creatures, have paler and thinner skin. If they spend too much time outside during the day, they can indeed get sunburned, or even worse, they could get eaten. So, you want to get as close to the moon as possible without leaving Earth? Easy. Hop on a plane to Ecuador and climb Mount Chimborazo. I know, it may sound weird, but hear me out. Now, Everest is the tallest mountain when you're measuring from sea level, but Chimborazo's peak is actually the closest spot on Earth to the moon. Here's the physics behind it. Mount Everest is over 29,000 feet tall, and Chimborazo is only around 20,000 feet. But the secret lies in how far they are from the Earth's core. You see, Earth is not a perfect sphere. It's chubby in the middle, and slightly squished at the top and the bottom. The chubby part in the middle is called the equator. FYI, the country Ecuador actually translates to equator in Spanish. Now you know. The mountain we're talking about, Chimborazo, is located a few degrees from the equator line. So since the squishy sphere is chubbier in the middle part, Chimborazo's peak sticks out farther into space. This means that if you hike all the way up to this mountain's peak, you'll be a smidge closer to the moon than if you hike all the way up Mount Everest. In the North Sea, off the coast of England, there's a tiny platform bobbing around, roughly the size of 2 tennis courts. You might think it's an oil platform, but this is Sealand, the world's tiniest country. The Ruff's Tower platform was built during the first half of the 20th century as a fort to protect English ships. Jump to the 1960s when a guy named Paddy Roy Bates decided to claim this old fort as his own country, naming it the Principality of Sealand. Paddy gave his country everything it deserved: a national flag, currency, a constitution, stamps, and a hoisting swing system. That's how you get into the country, by the way, hoisted all the way up to the upper part of the platform. Today, this micronation is headed by ruling monarch Michael Bates, who is a member of the country's self-proclaimed royalty. I know, right? Why wait in line for the British throne? The nation has its own fan club, who cheer for the country's national soccer club. Their team competes in international tournaments where they usually play with other tiny nations. Although Sealand only has one official resident as of right now, players from other countries join to help out their soccer team. One of the country's supporters also placed a Sealand flag on top of Mount Everest. Having your kitchen in one country and your living room in another, well, this is the daily reality for some locals in Bodily. In this town, the border between Belgium and the Netherlands doesn't just run along streets, it slices right through buildings. So to navigate this setup, a rule was made that a house's nationality is determined where its front door is located. But this solution created its own problems. There's a house where the front door is exactly on the border, giving it 2 addresses, one in Belgium and one in the Netherlands. The owners of this house were given a unique opportunity. They could choose which country they'd like to get their utilities from, like gas and water. And you guessed it, they picked the country where the stuff was cheaper, in this case, Belgium. Down in Senegal, Africa, there's a lake that looks like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. About 18 miles north of the capital, Dakar, you'll find Lake Retba, also known as La Rosa. This lake is famous for its bright pink water. Yes, it really is pink, and you can even take a swim if you're up for it. But be prepared, the water is super salty, one of the saltiest lakes in the world with salt levels over 40%. The pink color comes from a species of tiny algae. These algae produce red pigments that reflect sunlight, giving the lake its unique shade. If you want to see the lake at its brightest pink, visit during the dry season from November to June. The rainwater during other times of the year can wash away some of the color. Oh, by the way, there are other pink lakes around the world, like Lake Hillier in Western Australia and Lake Natron in Tanzania. So there's a hill that seems to be on fire all the time. Located in the Arctic region of Canada, the Smoking Hills are a truly unique sight on Earth. Some of the minerals found here are so rare that they've only been spotted on Mars. For at least a couple of hundred years, the ground here has been smoking continuously. At first, explorers thought this was due to an active volcano, but it turns out the smoke comes from something else. The soil in the Smoking Hills contains sulfur and coal, and when these materials mix with oxygen, they can spontaneously catch fire and keep on burning. But don't get any adventurous ideas about visiting. The environment here is extremely harsh, there's toxic smoke, and the temperatures can be dangerously high. So I'd try Orlando. New Zealand is famous for its stunning landscapes, but it also has a hidden treasure underground. Deep in some caves in the country's North Island, you can find a mesmerizing natural wonder. To see it, you'll need to go down about 150 feet in a series of dark, twisting caves. As you go deeper, you'll enter complete darkness until you reach the cave ceilings, which are lined with tiny glowing creatures. These are New Zealand's native glowworms, which are the larvae of a special type of fungus gnat found only in this country. They shine a bright blue light to attract prey. If you get a chance to tour these caves, it feels like floating through a galaxy, with thousands of these living stars sparkling above and their glow reflecting in the water beneath your boat. It's an incredible sight, like stepping into a magical glowing world. Mexico is home to one of the most amazing caves in the world, called the Cave of Crystals. If you think you've seen big crystals before, wait until you see these. In around 1910, miners in the town of Nica, Chihuahua, like the dog, discovered a cave full of clear selenite crystals. But it wasn't until 90 years later that they found an even more incredible cave filled with enormous crystals, some as long as 39 feet and weighing up to 55 tons. Scientists believe that 26 million years ago, give or take, hot, mineral-rich water filled this cave, allowing these huge crystals to grow. The Nica crystals are thought to be the biggest in the world, making people standing next to them look teeny in comparison. However, exploring the cave isn't easy. Inside, temperatures reach 136 degrees Fahrenheit. Even with protection, people can only stay inside for 20 to 30 minutes. It's an extraordinary place, but not exactly a comfortable one for humans. Mauritius is famous for its beautiful beaches and clear blue waters. But it also has a stunning optical illusion at its southwest corner that looks like an underwater waterfall. Even though it seems like water is flowing down into the ocean, what you're actually seeing is a trick of the light and the seafloor. The island is on an ocean shelf that's only about 500 feet deep, but just beyond the edge, it drops down to 2.5 miles deep. This drop creates the illusion of a waterfall as currents push sand and particles over the edge, making it look like water is cascading down. So, while it's not a real underwater waterfall, it's definitely a cool sight to see from a boat. Now here's a place that might either give you chills or leave you in awe, depending on when you visit. Near the small town of Gryfino in Poland, there's a forest of pine trees with a strange twist. They're all bent at their bases. During the day, these trees with their sharp 90-degree curves look fascinating and even a bit whimsical. You might even find a comfortable spot to sit on if you're having a picnic. But visit the crooked forest at night, and it takes on a whole different vibe. A thin layer of fog hangs around, making the forest look eerie and a bit spooky. Plus, scientists still don't know why for sure the trees are bent like this. So, would you prefer to see it in the bright light of day or the mysterious dark of night? Ooh.
Some men wear shoes with hidden heel lifts to look taller. Such shoes can make a person up to 6 inches taller. They look like regular shoes, but inside they have this extra insert. Sometimes, such an insert is glued down. Sometimes it's removable, and you can choose the height you need yourself. When the Titanic hit the iceberg and sank sometime later, the Atlantic Ocean was around 28 degrees Fahrenheit, which means the water was below its freezing point. No wonder so many passengers didn't make it. Some birds have a row of bristles protruding from the edges of their eyelids. Those bristles can probably be called eyelashes, but while human eyelashes are modified hairs meant to protect the eye, bird eyelashes are modified feathers. Identical twins don't actually have the same fingerprints, so you can't blame your misdeeds on your sibling after all. Different factors during development in the womb, like the position of the womb, umbilical cord length, and the rate of finger growth, impact fingerprints. Earth's rotation speed is changing. It's slowing down right now while we're talking. It means that, on average, the length of the day gets 1.8 seconds longer every century. 600 million years ago, a day lasted a mere 21 hours. Most world maps are wrong. On the majority of maps, they still use the Mercator projection, which was the first developed in 1569. But this method is very inaccurate and makes Alaska look as large as Brazil, while in reality, it's 5 times smaller. As for Greenland, it looks 14 times larger than it actually is. For a map to be precise, it would need to be life-sized and round, not flat. Ants don't have lungs. They breathe through tiny openings known as spiracles. An ant may have 9 or 10 of those on each side of the body, depending on the species. The average color of the universe is poetically called cosmic latte. In a 2002 study, scientists discovered that the light coming from other galaxies averaged into a beige color that was very close to white, just like the drink beloved by many. There is such a thing as minus decibels. The quietest place on Earth is Microsoft's anechoic chamber in Redmond, USA. The level of sound there is minus 20.6 decibels. Such chambers are built out of heavy concrete and bricks and are placed on springs to stop vibrations from entering the chamber through the floor. Bananas are radioactive. Wait, where did you go? It's not that bad. Bananas are rich in potassium, so each banana is slightly radioactive due to the natural isotope potassium-40. On the other hand, your body contains around 16 milligrams of potassium-40, so you're actually about 280 times more radioactive than that poor banana. And in any case, your body gets rid of that excess potassium-40 from a banana within several hours. There's simply no such thing as a straight line. You just need to zoom in close enough and you're bound to spot some irregularities. Even a laser light beam is a bit curved. In emergencies, fish form orderly lines. For example, when evacuating through narrow spaces in dangerous situations, school of neon tetrafish queue so that they don't crash into one another or clog up the line. Scientists think that this behavior means that fish can respect social rules even in emergency situations, unlike us humans. Hippos can't swim. These animals have large bones. These bones are so big and dense that it makes hippos barely buoyant at all. So these animals don't swim. Instead, they perform something like a slow-motion gallop on the riverbed. Hippos can also sleep underwater thanks to a reflex that allows them to rise to the surface, take a breath, and sink back down to the bottom without waking up. Lego bricks can withstand compression better than concrete. A regular plastic Lego brick can support the weight of 375,000 other bricks before it breaks. Theoretically, it could allow you to build a tower more than 2 miles in height. But if we decide to scale this up to house-sized bricks, the price would be exorbitant. If you ever go to space, you can take your yo-yo with you. In 2012, NASA astronaut Don Petit took a yo-yo on board the International Space Station and used it to show some tricks. You see, a yo-yo mostly relies on the laws of conservation of angular momentum to perform tricks. And if you keep the string taut, these laws apply in microgravity too. There's a theory that claims that we sweat when we're anxious to alert the brains of other people that they're primed for that danger that's making us feel anxiety. Brain scans have revealed that when you sniff the sweat produced by a panicking person, regions of the brain responsible for emotional and social signals light up. And when you are anxious, your sympathetic nervous system produces hormones, including adrenaline, which switches on your sweat glands. There are rainbows on Venus, and they're called glories. A glory looks like a series of colored concentric rings and is caused by the interference of light waves inside droplets rather than the process of reflection, refraction, and dispersion of light, which produces rainbows. Protons look like bagels, spheres, peanuts, and rugby balls. In other words, protons come in different shapes and sizes. Their appearance changes based on the speed of quirks, smaller particles within them. If you look at the moon while being in the southern hemisphere, it will seem to be upside down, and the man on the moon will look more like a rabbit. You will remember more of your dreams if you sleep badly and wake up many times throughout the night. You're also more likely to remember your dream if someone or something wakes you up in the middle of it. Dogs tilt their heads while listening to people to pinpoint familiar words like walkies more effectively. It also helps them to understand the tone of your voice better. There's also an idea that if a dog doesn't tilt its head often, it's because it relies more on sight and less on sound. Mirrors facing each other won't produce infinite reflections. Each next reflection will be darker than the previous one, and eventually, they will fade into invisibility. Mirrors absorb just a fraction of the energy of the light falling on them, so the total number of reflections mirrors can produce is around several hundred. You can smell ants, since many species of these insects produce strong-smelling chemicals when they feel threatened or angry, or when they're being squished. Trapjaw ants release a chocolatey smell when they're crushed, and citronella ants give off a lemony odor when they're threatened. Giraffes hum when they want to communicate with each other. Researchers think that this low-frequency humming might be a form of contact call between individuals that have been separated from their herd. It can also help giraffes find each other in the dark. But the coolest thing about these magnificent animals? Some scientists think that they could sleep talk too. And a cool bonus story for you. About a marathon runner who took over 50 years to finish the race. Japanese marathoner runner Shizo Kanekuri was selected as one of the 2 athletes that Japan could send to the 1912 Stockholm Olympics. But Kanekuri shockingly disappeared during the marathon race. It turned out that after a rough 18-day-long trip to Stockholm, first by ship and then by train, the man was exhausted. During the race, he stopped running because his condition simply didn't allow him to run further. The athlete stumbled into a nearby garden party where he drank orange juice and stayed for a while to recover. Later, Kanekuri was so embarrassed by his failure that he returned to Japan without notifying anyone, including race officials. So, Swedish authorities considered him missing for 50 years before finding out that he was peacefully living in his home country. In 1967, the athlete was offered the opportunity to finish his run. He accepted. 54 years, 8 months, 6 days, 5 hours, 32 minutes, and 20.3 seconds after he started the race, he completed the marathon. It was a long trip. Along the way, the man got married, had 6 kids, and 10 grandchildren.
Harvard biologists have uncovered a truly bizarre frog species that sports extendable claws, much like those of a cat. This hairy frog breaks its own bones to produce claws that puncture through its toe pads, likely when it feels threatened. Some salamanders push their ribs through their skin to create protective barbs, but scientists have seen nothing quite like this claw mechanism before. 9 out of 11 frogs in this genus have this feature, and most of them live in Cameroon. A bee's life doesn't have to end after it stings you. Some of them can carefully take out the stinger without passing away later. The bee starts circling around until it loosens and takes out the barbed stinger. After that, it just flies away without leaving any marks on your skin. Unlike wasps, which are carnivorous and can be aggressive, bees are mostly peaceful creatures. They either stay in their hive or move from flower to flower, helping to spread life on Earth because they're crucial for pollination. For bees, stinging is a last resort because it means demise for them, so they can choose not to do it to save themselves. You probably have heard that a salamander can regrow its tail if it loses it completely. Well, Mexican tetra, also known as the blind cavefish, goes further and can grow back its heart. Well, sort of. It won't get a new, full heart overnight, but it can regenerate its tissues. Scientists decided it could be useful for us humans, as they're studying these fish, to see what's their secret, and why not all animals can play the same trick. Thorny devil dragon lizard surely agrees with the proverb, 2 heads are better than 1. The knob growing from its back serves as a false head to trick whoever is after it. They also have a special camouflage coloring and a scary spiny body for extra protection. And if it doesn't sound cool enough, they also drink with their feet. Now that's a handy feature when you live in the scorching hot desert. The water goes directly from their feet to their mouths through little grooves between scales. Meanwhile, some flies have eyes on stalks. It might sound strange, but those stalks are super useful. First off, they give the fly amazing vision, so good they can even peek around corners. Secondly, these stalks can be used as tools to push away rivals, and the longer the stalks and the wider the eyes are set, the more attractive the male fly appears to females. It's like their way of showing off that they're strong and have good genes. Spiders have some seriously awesome biological tricks up their sleeves, or legs. Spinning giant webs of incredible strong silk to catch bad guys is a real superpower. and Darwin's bark spider is especially good at it. This spider can weave massive webs that stretch across entire bodies of water, with anchor strands that reach up to 82 feet long. Scientists were curious about how strong this spider silk really is, so they put it to the test. They discovered that Darwin's bark spider silk is twice as tough as any other silk and 10 times stronger than Kevlar, which is an ideal body armor material. The web can handle insane amounts of kinetic energy before breaking, ensuring that no tiny insect or villain can escape its web. The real hulk of the animal world is the male horned dung beetle. It is the strongest animal in the world. This little powerhouse can pull 1,140 times its own body weight. Its secret to success is its desire to find a partner. Female dung beetles dig cozy tunnels under piles of dung for mating. When more than one male shows up, the competitors lock horns and wrestle each other out of the tunnel. Smaller beetles also have a chance though, as they can move faster and slip into the tunnel more easily. Meanwhile, an alpine ibex has the superpower of defying gravity. Yep, it can scale steep rock walls just to get a lick of salt to complement its vegetarian diet. It's like when you storm the nearest grocery store for some late-night snacks. Back in the animal world, ibexes use concrete as an unconventional salt lick. Animals can't live without salt. They need it for their nerves and muscles to function properly. Wild goats have these rock-climbing skills thanks to the elastic and rubbery pads on their hooves. They help them grip the rocks, and a hard, sharper outer hoof edge hooks into the tiny rough spots on the rock surface. Now, the pistol shrimp is just 1.5 inches long, but it can snap its claws at a speed of 60 miles per hour. That creates a bubble in the water that forms a vacuum, and it sends a powerful water pulse that can stun prey. The snap is so intense that it generates a noise of 218 decibels, louder than a gunshot, and a temperature that is as hot as the sun's surface. There's even a brief flash of light. Some scientists are thinking of creating a mechanical version of the pistol shrimp to use in medical practice or for a new type of compression engine. Now, if you go hiking in the trails of the Pacific Northwest, keep an eye on the ground and any decaying trees for some bright yellow spots moving along. These are the keels of a dark centipede about 2 inches long. If you pick one up, it will curl into a spiral and release hydrogen cyanide, giving off a strong almond scent. This amount isn't enough to seriously mess up a human. It can just stain your skin or give you an uncomfortable feel if you're sensitive. So be sure to wash your hands after handling one. But the same amount can take down a bird or a rodent. Speaking of birds, crows can count vocally up to 4. They're a lot like human toddlers when it comes to learning to count and quickly identify the number of objects they see. Scientists train 3 carrion crows to make a certain number of calls between 1 and 4 when they showed them a specific symbol or audio cue. All 3 birds mastered the task like pros, with some minor mistakes like one caw too many or too few. Crows can also plan ahead and communicate with each other in a structured way. Cowbirds, on the other hand, have secret passwords they use to recognize each other. They're a type of parasite bird, something like a cuckoo, and they lay their eggs in other bird species' nests. This means the little cowbirds can't learn their real parents' calls and would have trouble as adults to find a mate of their kind. That's why they have an inner mechanism where they recognize their species singing like some sort of secret password that only they know. Meanwhile, ghost crabs growl when they're around creatures they don't like or find threatening. They first show claws to intruders in their personal space to make them feel unwelcome. If that's not enough, they'll go for fearsome growling noises, like dogs. That sound is coming from rubbing their 3 elongated, hard teeth inside their stomach. Teeth in your stomach. Ghost crabs make the same noise when they're grinding up food. When a puffin feels like it could use a good scratch, nothing can stop it from solving the problem. Researchers noticed these birds pick up a small wooden stick to itch themselves. The authors think puffins might need sticks to knock off seabird ticks. Looks like it's more effective than using its own beak. There's an Indian elephant named Koshik who lives in South Korea and can imitate words just like parrots do. Koshik can pronounce the Korean words for yes, no, sit, lie down, and 4 other words. He puts his trunk inside his mouth and shakes it while exhaling to change the tone and pitch of the sounds he produces. If you can whistle with your fingers in the mouth, it's a lot like that. Does the universe ring like a crystal glass? Maybe. But it doesn't mean that it literally rings and we just don't hear it. It just vibrates. Many of you know that the universe started with the Big Bang around 13.8 billion years ago. I wasn't around then, but we can assume. The whole enchilada was born from a super concentrated, hot, and dense tiny dot that contained everything. When it couldn't bear its pressure anymore, it made a huge blast and spewed around all the time, space, matter, and antimatter like a Pokeball. After being born, the universe moved at a breakneck speed. Imagine standing in the middle of nowhere, you blink, and suddenly you're surrounded by the universe. That's what it would feel like. It started growing and growing, and eventually, its speed got slowed down a bit by gravity. Gravity started pulling all the matter together, slowly helping new things like stars and galaxies to form. Okay, makes sense so far. The Big Bang gave the universe a big push, accelerating it. Logically, everything should eventually slow down and start moving at a constant speed, or even stop, right? Well, nope. In the late 90s, astronomers discovered something weird. They looked at some supernova around us, and for some reason, these supernovas were super far away, much farther than they were supposed to be. In other words, the expansion of the universe is not only continuing after all these years, but it's even accelerating. After years of study, they discovered the concept of dark energy, a mysterious force that makes up about 68% of the universe's total energy. This energy pushes it to expand even faster over time. And now, scientists have proposed a new discovery. Perhaps the universe's movements are a bit, well, wobbly. It seems like the universe's expansion hasn't been smooth and stable over the years. Instead, it has undergone periods of speeding up and slowing down multiple times. Astronomers counted about 7 cycles of this acceleration and deceleration over the history of our universe. This can be compared to the oscillation of a crystal glass. When you strike a crystal glass, it vibrates, oscillating at its natural frequency. It goes through fluctuations in which the frequency rises and falls. Over time, it calms down and fades away. Well, something like this is happening to our universe. You can imagine its speed also fluctuating like that, rising and falling, first super rapidly and then more calmly. As if it's not just different waves traveling through it, but our entire world is like one huge ringing wave. The discovery was actually made by accident. Astronomers were working on dark matter modeling. They plotted a new graph called the Hubble diagram, which shows how big the universe got over the years, measured in supernovas. Supernovas are like some lighthouses of our world, helping us mark things on a map. That's when they found these oscillations. But we still need to check all the data to make sure that this discovery is indeed true. Dark energy and dark matter play this weird game with the universe, where one is constantly trying to pull everything together, while the other one wants everything to expand. So far, dark energy vastly outweighs dark matter, whose weight makes up only 27% of the universe. Now, both of them are invisible to us, and not just invisible to our eyes like infrared, it's that we literally can't detect them in any way. We can only assume that they exist based on how they influence gravity, changing entire galaxies, and all the large-scale structures of the universe. We basically made them up because it was the only way to explain how our world works. Dark energy is uniformly distributed across space and time, and we're still not sure what exactly it is. Some theories say that it could be a property of space itself, quantum fluctuations, or even a new type of field or particle. But all we have for now is an invisible energy that pushes the universe to move very fast. If one day we learn more about it, this will help us predict the entire fate of our world. Depending on how exactly dark energy works, the universe may continue expanding and growing indefinitely. Or maybe one day, it will experience the Big Rip, where all matter will be completely torn apart. Okay, here's to hoping we're not all around for that. Meanwhile, dark matter, also invisible and yet to be proved, works the opposite way. It's not energy that accelerates things. Instead, it's more like a glue that tries to hold everything together. It's a type of matter we can't detect because it doesn't emit, absorb, or reflect light. We don't even know what particles make up this thing. We still can't catch them. At first, we thought it might be made up of regular heavy particles, like the one that makes up our world. But after years of research, they haven't found even a single one. So now they think maybe it's actually made up of ultralight particles, millions of times lighter than anything we know, and because of that, we can't even notice them properly. So now, astronomers try to detect not the particles themselves, but waves that they could leave as they move through space. But we believe that it exists, because if it didn't, our galaxies wouldn't hold together. Dark matter helps them form, grow, and rotate. So, about 85% of our world is made of something unknown. All of this is incredibly mysterious and needs a lot of research. But that's what we know now. Maybe in the future, we'll discover something that will completely change our perception of the universe. That's what happened to Albert Einstein. In the early 20th century, most scientists, including Einstein, believed that the universe doesn't actually move. They thought it was static, neither expanding nor contracting. That's because, to us, it feels like it doesn't really move. Back then, scientists didn't have powerful computers or telescopes that could detect all the little changes in the positions of stars and supernovas. When Einstein developed his famous general theory of relativity in 1915, his equations actually suggested that the universe should either be expanding or contracting. This didn't really make sense to him. To fix this calculation flaw, he decided to introduce a new term, the cosmological constant. It was like a repulsive force that counteracted the attractive force of gravity. Essentially, it meant that while gravity tries to push everything together, some force or energy helps to balance this out by pushing everything apart. Sounds familiar? Then, in the 1920s, astronomers Edwin Hubble and Georges Lemaitre found out that the universe isn't static, it actually expands. They noticed a slight reddish tint from the distant galaxies, and this tiny hint meant that other galaxies were moving away from us. After that, Einstein scratched out the cosmological constant. Interesting how he was later ashamed of this assumption, calling it his greatest blunder. He didn't even know that he was 100 years ahead of his time, accidentally discovering dark energy. Now the cosmological constant is back again, just in a new form. Something similar happened with dark matter. Scientists have already started noticing that something doesn't add up back in the early 20th century. They saw that galaxy clusters didn't have enough visible mass to hold them together, which means there must be some unseen mass that helps to make up for it. And that's when it got its name, the dark matter. This stayed unresolved and unproven for many years. And then, it was finally discovered by Vera Rubin when she was observing galaxies and their movement. She realized that outward parts of galaxies move almost as fast as their central parts. This doesn't really make sense. The outer parts should be a bit slower. This became the first official proof of dark matter, which boosted its research. There are still many things left to be discovered. But maybe one day, we'll understand what is this invisible part of our universe that makes it ring. Fun fact: Olympic synchronized swimmers, now renamed artistic swimmers, don't usually wear swim caps. When they compete, they put Knox gelatin in their hair. The result resembles unflavored Jell-O. Athletes mix the gelatin with water and it turns into a gooey mixture. After that, they comb and brush the substance into their hair, pull it into a bun, and put a headpiece over it. When it all dries, it becomes really hard, and swimmers' hair doesn't fall out when they swim. They often add glitter and other decorations to make their hairstyles even more exciting. The blanket octopus is called this way because of the females of the species. They're supersized and rarely seen. They have a long, fleshy cape which encloses their tentacles. Female octopuses are large, up to 6.5 feet in length. Thanks to this cape, they look even larger and much more intimidating to potential predators. But the coolest thing about these creatures is that the male blanket octopus grows to be a mere 1 inch in length, which is smaller than a walnut. This makes the blanket octopus a species with the largest gender size difference in the entire animal kingdom. Red Bull has published a video showing the so-called world's fastest camera drone following a racing car around Silverstone's Grand Prix circuit. The Dutch drone gods are a company that custom-built the manually piloted drone designed specifically for keeping up with cars moving at speeds of over 186 miles per hour. It took more than a year for Red Bull and the Dutch drone gods to create a drone that could accelerate twice as fast as a Formula One car, reaching this breakneck speed in just 4 seconds. The drone's top speed is almost 220 miles per hour. Recently, scientists have concluded that water might not be wet. You see, wetness is usually defined as a liquid's ability to maintain contact with a solid surface. It means that the water itself isn't wet, but it can make other objects wet. Okay.
Wow.
The Maldives' 1,000 rupiah banknote has captured the attention of people from all over the world and received a lot of praise for its stunning design. The note features the striped pattern of the skin of a majestic whale shark and a green sea turtle against a vibrant blue backdrop. It's already been called the prettiest currency in the world. Now, wearing a tie might be more dangerous than you think. It can reduce blood flow to the brain by 7.5%, making you dizzy and nauseous and causing headaches. Ties can also increase the pressure in your eyes if it's too tight. Plus, they're great at transporting germs. Gotta think again whether following that dress code is so necessary. A young girl from Washington broke a Guinness World Record by putting on 45 sweaters at a local library. Sophia Hayden pulled on each sweater individually all the way down to her waist before moving on to the next one. It was done to comply with Guinness World Record rules. She also had to make sure that none of those sweaters was ripped, since damaged items didn't count. As a result, she broke the record for the most sweaters worn at once. The previous record was 40 sweaters, and it was set by a French 11-year-old boy in 2022. Later, Sophia's mother admitted that it had been tricky to gather enough sweaters for that attempt. The sweaters were then donated to charity. Now, it was Louis XIV of France who is believed to have brought salt and pepper together, forming the basis for modern cooking. At that time, only rich people could afford to add pepper to their meals, and the king liked his food to be lightly seasoned with just salt and pepper. Our sun produces a sound, but sadly, we can't hear it. It's emitted in the form of pressure waves, and their wavelength is measured in hundreds of miles. It means they're far beyond the range of human hearing. Now, while we're on the topic of space, let's discuss the fact that our solar system has a wall surrounding it. Well, kind of. It's called the heliopause, and it's the region of space where solar wind isn't hot enough to push back the wind of particles coming from distant stars. That's why this region is often considered the boundary between the solar system and interstellar space. Another space fact for you: comets smell like rotten eggs. I know, ew. Other smells that might surround them are those of burning matches and even almonds. That's because of the traces of hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, sulfur dioxide, and hydrogen cyanide found in the makeup of some comets. In 2016, promotional postcards were even made, carrying the pungent scent of a comet. Now, in any career field, the average worker is productive for around 60% of their working time each day. But if we talk about office workers, this percentage drops drastically. One study determined that the average office worker is productive for a mere 2 hours and 23 minutes per day. The thing is, employees are interrupted in general every 3 minutes and 5 seconds. And it takes people a whopping 23 minutes to get refocused after an interruption. It means that employees get 3 minutes of work done for every 26 minutes they spend at their workplace. Unbelievable. No wonder that statistically, people working remotely are much more productive. Scottish soccer team Inverness Caledonian Thistle Football Club is known for using cameras with AI ball tracking to live stream their matches on YouTube. Well, once, in a 2020 match against Our United to be precise, when a camera repeatedly tracked an official's bald head, mistaking it for the soccer ball. Uh-oh, what a blunder. Now, speaking of sports, football teams wearing red kits reportedly play better. Accordingly, the color of your attire affects not only how you're perceived by others, but also how you feel. A review of football matches in the past 55 years has shown that teams wearing red consistently play better in home matches than teams dressed in any other color. One more awesome story connected to sports. In order to draw some of the most wanted criminals out of hiding, the U.S. Marshal Service once came up with an offer crooks couldn't resist. They invited them to the Super Bowl. In December 1985, more than 100 people came to the Washington Convention Center after receiving a letter informing them that they had won tickets to the largest sporting event in the country. According to the invites, they had been selected randomly from a clearinghouse list of D.C. residents and were supposed to receive 2 tickets to the Redskins vs. Bengals game that day. But to get in, they had to come to a pre-game party to collect their tickets. And guess what? The plan worked like a charm. Over 100 criminals were arrested, which made Operation Flagship one of the most successful in U.S. police history. Now moving on. Your brain is eating itself non-stop. Wait, don't panic yet. It's a totally normal process known as phagocytosis. During this process, cells envelop and consume smaller cells or molecules to remove them from the system. Luckily, phagocytosis isn't harmful. It actually helps preserve your gray matter, keeping it in top shape. Boy, I could use more of that. Giraffes are 30 times more likely to get hit by lightning than people. Between 1996 and 2010, there were just 5 documented lightning strikes on giraffes that ended tragically. But if we consider the fact that the population of the species was just 140,000 at that time, it makes for around 0.003 lightning casualties per 1,000 giraffes each year. This is 30 times more than the number of tragic accidents involving lightning strikes that happen to people. Animals experience time differently from us humans. To smaller animals, the world around them moves more slowly. For instance, salamanders and lizards experience time not as fast as, let's say, dogs and cats. All because of the perception of time, which depends on how quickly the brain can process incoming information. And finally, snails do have teeth, between 1,000 and 12,000 to be precise. These teeth aren't like ours though, so there's no need to picture snails with silly toothy grins. Snails' minuscule teeth are all over their file-like tongues. So there.
Your tummy acid can chow down on a razor blade like it's no big deal. Some penguins can totally out-height us humans. And you could potentially turn a jar of peanut butter into a rocking diamond ring to pop the question to your boo. Sounds crazy? Well, it's all true. If you're itching for more facts like these and want to learn why salty crackers are more of a tooth hazard than sugary treats, then stay tuned. Mattresses get heavier over time. As we sleep, our mattresses soak up all our skin oils, sweat, and tears. Yes, I also cry at night. This creates the perfect environment for dust mites, fungi, and bacteria to thrive. Over 5 years, your mattress might collect up to 880 pints of body fluids. Dead skin is another big weight-adding factor too. With 1.5 million skin cells shed hourly, these flakes pile up and become a feast for dust mites. An average used mattress could be home to up to 10 million of these critters. Your spilled coffee makes your mattress heavier too. Foam layers in a mattress trap the liquid and add to its weight. If you know Miss Piggy from the Muppets or Yoda from Star Wars, you'll instantly recognize their unique voices. It's hard to believe they have anything in common, right? Well, Frank Oz spilled the beans in 2021 in his interview. Starting with The Muppet Show and Sesame Street, Frank gave life to characters like Miss Piggy, Cookie Monster, Grover, and more. Then he ventured into the galaxy far, far away to voice Yoda and even came up with the alien's iconic way of speaking. Let's say you decided to move to the healthy side and started munching on carrot sticks instead of your regular, not exactly healthy snacks. Suddenly, you catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror and realize that your skin has a subtle orange tint. Say what now? Nope, you're not dreaming. All that beta-carotene and orange fruits and veggies can give your skin a temporary glow-up. Don't worry though, just switch up your snacks and the Oompa Loompa look will fade in no time. Some people believe there's no such thing as too much garlic, and they're right. For a fun science experiment, try tasting garlic through your feet. The American Chemical Society claims it's totally possible. Cut a piece of garlic, place it in a bag, put your bare feet inside, and wait. Thanks to a compound called allicin, the garlic will travel through your skin to your mouth and nose. Kids of identical twins share a special bond, being considered both cousins and half-siblings. This unique relationship is due to their genetic similarities. They inherit similar DNA from their identical twin parents. While legally they are cousins, genetically they're more like half-siblings. In fact, they share about 25% of their DNA, double the amount shared by regular cousins. This makes them more genetically related than typical cousins, but not as close as full siblings or identical twins. A man in the US has been surviving on nothing but 20 potatoes a day for 2 months. Chris Voigt from Washington State Potato Commission wanted to show that potatoes aren't just a bunch of carbs, but are actually good for you. You may think that eating spuds alone may make you gain a few extra pounds, but Chris shed some pounds and lowered his cholesterol instead. By the way, in theory, you could even survive eating taters and butter only. Not only are potatoes cool on Earth, but scientists have also made them cool in space. They're the first plants ever grown beyond Earth. In the early 90s, there was an experiment about growing potatoes in space. The study aimed to understand how microgravity conditions affected the growth of potatoes. Potatoes were chosen for their resilience to different climates and ability to thrive in extreme conditions. We need our stomach acid to be super acidic to break down all the variety of foods we eat. It's so strong that it can even dissolve some metals. For example, razor blades dissolve in stomach acid pretty quickly. After 24 hours, they're already 63% gone. Double-edged blades can be broken within 15 hours, while single-edged blades disappear in just 2 hours. Batteries are safe, but pennies don't even get a scratch. Good thing our stomach has a protective layer of mucus and bicarbonate to keep everything in check. The reason we're taller in the morning than at night is the intervertebral discs in our spine. These discs are mostly water, and throughout the day, they get squished down from all the bending and twisting we do. But when we sleep, our spines get a chance to relax, and the discs soak up more fluid, making us a bit taller in the morning. Scientists have found that there are some pretty big gaps between adult brains and teenage brains. One key player in this brain game is the prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain handles important stuff like decision-making and impulse control, but it's not all grown up until you hit your 20s. Adults have their prefrontal cortex in full swing, helping them make smart choices and think things through. Teens, on the other hand, might be more likely to let their emotions guide their decisions. If a cow ever smiles at you, you're gonna be in for a shock. They don't even have upper front teeth. Instead, they have a special dental pad that helps them munch on grass like a pro. When it comes to chewing, cows have it down to a science. They have sharp incisors at the bottom of their mouth for cutting grass and molars at the back for grinding it all up. It all works smoothly, like a quality food processor. Researchers have discovered a penguin species that lived 37 million years ago and would have been as tall as most humans. This giant penguin, also known as the Colossus penguin, stood at a whopping 7 feet tall from toe to beak tip and weighed as much as 250 pounds. To put that in perspective, today's biggest penguin, the emperor penguin, is only 3.6 feet tall and weighs between 50 and 100 pounds. The researchers have also found the longest recorded fused ankle foot bone and parts of a wing bone from this ancient species. With their larger build, these giant penguins were able to dive underwater for longer periods of time, up to 40 minutes, to hunt for fish. Every year, people around the world take about 1.81 trillion photos. That's around 57,000 photos snapped every second, or a whopping 5 billion pics snapped daily. These days, we take more photos every 2 minutes than were taken in the entire 19th century. Cheese! In Singapore, researchers gave cyborg cockroaches a spin in the desert to try them out for search and rescue missions down the road. Turns out, a team of 20 roaches decked out with computer backpacks can actually work together as a swarm. The scientists were able to steer the roaches by sending commands through the backpacks, thanks to a cool new algorithm they came up with. These high-tech bugs could be a real game changer in disaster situations when it comes to sniffing out survivors. What do peanut butter and an engagement ring have in common? Both of them contain diamonds. Scientists have learned how to turn peanut butter into diamonds. They extracted oxygen from CO2, got carbon, and then put it under intense pressure, forming diamonds in the end. Double-stuffed Oreo cookies aren't double-stuffed in fact. A math teacher, Dan Anderson, weighed 10 regular Oreos, 10 double-stuffed Oreos, 10 mega-stuffed Oreos, and 5 wafers. Turns out, double-stuffed Oreos are only 1.86 stuffed Oreos. Next time you ditch your favorite candies because of your fear of cavities, think twice about what you replace those candies with. Crackers are even more harmful for your teeth than sugar. It's not sugar, but acid that decays the teeth enamel. Sticky crackers produce that acid. It's a good environment for bacteria. They're gonna feast in between your teeth. Water is something that just can't go off. How come there are these expiration dates on water bottles then? The expiration date on mineral water doesn't refer to the water. It's about the bottle that can actually get expired. The thing is, over time, it starts leaking some chemicals that aren't quite safe.
So get this, if someone managed to uncoil all the DNA in the human body, it would stretch out to around 10 billion miles. Hey, do the math. That's twice the distance from Earth to Pluto. And that's not the only awesome thing our body is capable of. Trillions of nerve connections are powering your memory nonstop. According to studies, after looking at 2,500 images for a mere 3 seconds, most people can recall if they have seen these pictures with 92% accuracy. Wow. Your body glows, emitting tiny amounts of barely visible light. This glow is the product of biochemical reactions going on inside your organism. The light waxes and wanes throughout the day, but even though it is visible, you can't detect it with the unaided eye. From 1 to 6 pounds of your body weight is made up of bacteria, and from 100 million to 1 billion bacteria can live on just one tooth in your mouth. So please brush. It's impossible to taste your food without saliva, all because the chemicals in your food must be dissolved in saliva before they get detected by your taste buds. Even though it sounds like a myth, eating too many carrots can indeed turn your skin orange. Carrots have high amounts of beta-carotene. That's a compound that can cause carotenemia. If you have too much of this compound in your bloodstream, it'll hold on to parts of your body with thicker skin. I'm talking about the soles of your feet, your knees, elbows, palms, and even certain areas around your nose. But worry not, this condition is not dangerous. You can easily reverse it by decreasing the amount of beta-carotene-filled foods you consume. The chin muscles, scientifically known as the mentalis muscles, look pretty quirky, giving us mixed feelings. Just look at these creepy tiny tentacles. And still, they make it possible for us to create all kinds of facial expressions that involve the lips, chin, and cheeks. And yes, they are the culprits behind those weird wrinkles and crevices on the skin of your chinny chin chin. All because these muscles don't pull on themselves, but yank on the skin. Now, people can live without some organs, leading a normal life. The human body consists of singular organs and those that come in pairs. And speaking of the latter, you only need one of those to survive. Your small intestine is actually not so small. It's taller than you, measuring around 23 feet. Now, the cornea, that transparent front cover on your eyes, doesn't have any blood supply. Instead, it receives oxygen directly from the air. Human beings develop their unique fingerprints very early in life, while they're still embryos, just 3 months after being conceived. By the way, even if fingerprints get badly damaged, they tend to grow back to their original pattern. All people are born with a diving reflex. They can get activated and shut bodily functions if one is drowning or is submerged in the water. The human brain is by no means smooth, but if you decided to flatten all those wrinkles covering it, the brain would be the size of a pillowcase, but not as useful. Newborn babies only blink once or twice in a minute. For comparison, a grown-up person blinks at least 10 times within the same time. Our lungs are the only organs that can float on the water, all because they're made up of around 300 million balloon-like structures called alveoli. Also, even if we're perfectly healthy, our lungs are never completely germ-free or sterile. Your nose is a superhero. It's your very own heater, filter, and humidifier. This organ is lined with tiny bone-like shells called turbinates. They contain blood vessels capable of heating the air and goblet cells that can help humidify the air. Also, the air you breathe gets filtered in your nose before going further to your lungs. Now, every time you eat something, your esophagus, the organ your food travels through to reach the stomach, moves in a series of wave-like contractions, pushing the food forward. This is known as peristalsis. There's a bond between your digestive system and your brain, the gut-brain axis. This is why stress or brain issues can affect the way your body digests food. Now, even though hiccups are typically harmless and resolve by themselves after a couple of minutes, they aren't exactly pleasant. So you should probably know that they might occur because of changes in temperature. The density of your brain increases throughout your whole life, all because new neural connections pop up. They appear because the structure of the brain keeps changing too. If you don't want to sneeze, press the skin on the bridge of your nose with your fingers. When you do it, your brain receives an alarm signal. Very quickly, it puts the brake on all those other processes, including the sneezing reflex. By the way, studies have found that sneezing is your nose's way to reset. A sneeze reboots the cells that line the inside of your nose. They're called cilia. The part of your brain that's responsible for vision is in the back of your head. Interestingly, the right side of your brain controls the vision on the left side, and vice versa. If you're in some loud place, for example in a club or at a concert, close your ears to better hear your friends. Push the tragus, which is that pointy skin-covered cartilage in front of the ear canal, into your ear. Then turn this ear toward your friend. On average, when a person snores, the sound doesn't get louder than 60 decibels. That's as loud as a regular conversation. But sometimes, the noise level can reach 80 decibels. That's as loud as a working food blender. Just like salamanders regrow their tails, humans might be able to regenerate cartilage. That's the rubber-like stuff surrounding your joints. Scientists have recently discovered that cartilage could repair itself. This process is likely to be the most effective at the ankle, not that effective in the knee, and the least effective in the hip. Now, if a person has anosmia, which is also called smell blindness, they don't distinguish and detect smells. Your eyes never stop moving while taking in visual information. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see the whole picture. These movements go unnoticed because your brain is a great video editor. It stabilizes the images and connects tons of fragments into one smooth video. The liver is the only human organ that can regenerate completely. Even if it's a mere 25% of the original liver weight, the organ can get back to its full size. Your mouth burns when you're snacking on pineapple because while you're eating this fruit, it's eating you back. Well, kind of. Pineapple is the only known food that contains bromelain. That's an enzyme that breaks down proteins. Luckily, your stomach acid knows how to deal with the offending enzyme. Now, we also have bacteria that can produce electricity living in our intestines. These bacteria give off electrons, which creates tiny electrical currents. This might be the bacteria's way to generate energy. Déjà vu
Might actually be something like a brain processing lag.
There's a theory claiming that it might happen when your brain is moving information from one part to another. If there's even the tiniest delay in that process, your brain will get the same information twice. In this case, it'll process it as an event that happened before. The DEC2 gene mutation allows people to have just a few hours of sleep a night and still feel great. They don't get tired and never sleep in. On average, such people wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. No more than 5% of the world's population has this feature. Your ears might pop or even hurt when you're on an airplane. You can solve this problem by simply chewing some gum. This opens up your eustachian tube. That's a small passage that connects your throat and your middle ear. Opening this passage helps equalize the pressure in your ears and puts an end to the popping. You can also yawn to open up the eustachian tubes. Your feet are likely to become bigger with time, just like your nose and your ears. You see, when people grow older, ligaments and tendons in their feet weaken. This makes the arches flatter, and the feet become wider and longer.
Let's face it, airports can be pretty annoying. But the most annoying thing about them is probably having to take the laptop out of your backpack and put it in a separate bin while going through the security check. But, of course, they wouldn't make us do those extra moves if there wasn't a good reason for it. Laptops are dense, and X-rays can't penetrate them, so it's easy to hide something dangerous there. If the device is out and on its own in a separate bin, it's easier for the scanners to capture something dangerous. Most airplanes are white. Is there a benefit to choosing this exact color? No, white paint doesn't make a place feel lighter. Neither does it save money on painting. Here are the actual reasons for the choice: safety, efficiency, and comfort. The first airplanes had a metallic color, but the problem with metal is that it's prone to corrosion, so painting it is a great way to protect an airplane from corrosion. White is favored for several reasons. First, planes fly high above the clouds and are exposed to sunlight a lot. White is the color that absorbs the least heat, and white planes get heated less. Also, sunlight makes the paint fade away. A colorful airplane will have its paint fade very fast and will require repainting. And repainting is costly, so painting aircraft white is a more lasting choice. Also, any damage is more easily noticed on a white surface. So that's one more point for the white color. We always board from the left side of the plane, every single time, no exceptions. For some reason, the right side just doesn't seem to be an option. Yes, that's done on purpose. First, the captain usually sits on the left. This way, it's easier for the pilot to align the plane with the terminal jet bridge. Also, aircraft are fueled and loaded with baggage on the right side. Since people board the plane from the left, the crew can do their job undisturbed, and there's no danger to passengers. Consistency with the choice of a side helps to make everything work more effectively. Since everyone always enters from the left, all jet bridges are designed to get attached to the left side of the airplane. If every airplane had the freedom to choose the side, it would create an additional mess for the logistics behind the process. There are more questions popping up, like what does this black triangle drawn above one of the windows mean? Apparently, it marks the seat from which the view of the airplane's wing is the best. It's needed for the crew to find the spot as fast as possible if, in case of an emergency, they need to inspect the engines, slats, or flaps. This mark saves a lot of time. Next, the rows aren't well aligned with the windows. This is business. Originally, all planes are designed with rows and windows lining up perfectly. But when an airline buys a jet, they add some additional seats, squeezing them closer together. This way, they have more seats, which means more passengers, so they can sell more tickets. But you get less space for your legs and might miss out on a window. Also, all windows have rounded corners, and this is done for safety reasons. There used to be planes with squared windows, but those caused crashes because such windows couldn't withstand high-altitude pressures. At high altitudes, external atmospheric pressure is lower than the pressure inside the cabin. So, there's a big difference in pressure inside and outside the airplane, and this creates stress. Without windows, this stress flows smoothly through the material. A squared window becomes an obstacle, and the flow of stress needs to change direction. The pressure builds up in the corners, leading to cracks. As a result, such windows break. Oval windows allow the stress to flow more smoothly without disrupting them too much and preventing stress concentration. So, oval windows are safer. The glass used in production is stretched acrylic glass, and there are 3 separate panes of it. This is done as a security measure in case there is a breach. This way, at least one pane will remain intact at all times. Have you ever noticed those small holes in the windows? The tiny hole is actually only in the pane that's in the middle. Its task is to regulate the huge pressure difference inside and outside the cabin. This way, the outer pane can handle the load. If the outer pane breaks, the middle one, even though there's a hole in it, will be able to keep the window intact. Also, that hole prevents the windows from fogging up. Now, let's say you want to relax and watch a movie. Luckily, there's a pair of headphones. But they're weird. They have a two-pronged plug. No, this is not some kind of advanced technology. This is a witty move to prevent theft. If you can't use them anywhere else but on the airplane, no one will have the urge to snatch them away. Outside the airplane, they're basically useless. And then they bring food. There are people who love airplane food and people who aren't very fond of it. But most will agree that food does taste different in the air. Turns out, it's actually a thing. Low air pressure, lack of humidity, and background noise that we have at high altitudes change the functioning of our taste buds. They become less sensitive to sweet and salty foods, so airlines have to use more seasoning. Have you ever wondered what would happen if someone opened an airplane door accidentally? This wouldn't end well. It would be very dangerous to say the least. More specifically, soon there would be a lack of oxygen in the cabin. But gladly, no one can open that door accidentally. The pressure difference between inside and outside makes it almost impossible. It would take some immense strength to open it. The doors are designed to open on their own in case of an emergency. Speaking of safety, during takeoff and landing, the crew dims the light in the cabin. This is done for a good reason. This way, in case of emergency, you will see everything more clearly. Your eyes will get used to the darkness, and you'll have an easier time evacuating. Now, about pilots. They always wear those cool sunglasses, but the purpose is not to look cooler. They're used to protect the eyes. Throughout their career, pilots have to take care of their vision, but the problem is that it's not an easy task when you're a pilot. The damaging solar radiation that our sun emits is filtered out by the Earth's atmosphere, so the sunlight isn't very damaging to you if you spend most of your time on the ground. But it's different up in the sky. There's less air there, and the brightness is way higher. And with every 1,000 feet of elevation, the solar radiation is around 5% stronger. On average, aircraft fly at an altitude of 35,000 feet. This means that the amount of UV radiation is 175% greater than on the ground. This is very damaging to any person's vision. The large amount of time pilots spend in the air makes them vulnerable to different eye problems. And having eye problems can cost a pilot their career. So, wearing sunglasses is a crucial thing for them, and these sunglasses must be of the best quality. They should minimize the impact of sunlight and withstand UV rays, providing 100% protection for the eyes. Also, they can't be polarized, since polarization can mess with the perception of the cockpit displays. They should provide the best clarity, decrease eye fatigue, and minimize color deformation, so that pilots can see just like they would without their sunglasses on.
So you're on a desert safari, but things don't go as planned. Now you've run out of water in one of the hottest and driest places on the planet. You might think you can get some water from a cactus, but sorry, that's just a myth. In fact, most cactuses have protective chemicals inside them that can make you sick if you try to eat them. There are only a couple of exceptions. The prickly pear and one type of barrel cactus called the fishhook barrel cactus have milder chemicals and could give you some water if you really needed it. Now, if you believe you can escape an alligator if you run in a zigzag, well, I need to disappoint you. This isn't true either. Just run as fast as you can. Alligators rarely chase humans on land. They prefer to ambush their prey in the water, where they are faster and more agile. After all, they can swim at 10 miles per hour. So the chance of an alligator chasing a human on land is very low. This zigzag running advice is more of a joke than a serious survival strategy. Don't believe the myth claiming you can survive a wild animal attack if you pretend to not be alive. Okay, in the animal kingdom, playing dead is a common defense tactic. Some animals even excrete certain odors to enhance the illusion and deter predators. Yet, for humans, that's different. Investigation into 14 different types of animals in North America revealed that, in most situations, it's crucial to stay alert and knowledgeable to be able to take the right actions in time. The next popular, but false, idea is that polar bears hide their noses with their paws while hunting. People think they do it because their black noses are easy to see against the ice, while their fur blends in. However, experts have spent years using telescopes to watch polar bears hunting seals in the Arctic. They've observed them for a long time, even up to 24 hours, and have never seen them cover their noses like that. Unless they have to sneeze. Just joking. Another belief is that running downhill will save you from a bear. This is based on the idea that their shorter front legs struggle to run downhill. In reality, bears are incredibly fast runners, capable of reaching speeds of over 37 miles per hour, and they can sprint downhill just as easily as uphill. So, you'll need another strategy. The myth that vehicle headrests are designed to be detachable and sharp to break windows is false. The primary function of a headrest is to prevent neck damage in a crash. Research and documents about the headrest design don't mention any feature for breaking windows. Plus, not all vehicles have removable headrests, and those that are detachable are not necessarily sharp. Touching a baby bird will make its parents abandon it. Actually, birds have a limited sense of smell, so they're unlikely to detect human scent on their babies. This misconception often leads people to leave fledgling birds alone, thinking they're helping. But in reality, these young birds might need assistance. But also, it's common for young birds to leave the nest before they can fly well, and their parents usually to continue to feed them on the ground. If you find a baby bird that has fallen out of its nest, it's best to leave it alone, as the parents are likely nearby and will continue to care for it. The widespread belief that humans use only 10% of their brains is a myth too. Advanced neuroimaging tools like PET scans show that the entire brain is active, even during sleep. These scans reveal continuous activity across the brain, involved in functions such as regulating, interpreting, and acting. This debunks the idea that large parts of the brain remain inactive. The myth that shaving body hair makes it grow back thicker and darker is false. When you shave facial or body hair, it doesn't change its thickness, color, or rate of growth. Shaving just leaves hairs with blunt tips. These newly cut, blunt tips might feel coarser or stubbier as the hair grows out. During this phase, the hair may seem more noticeable and could appear darker or thicker, but this is just a temporary effect, not an actual change in the properties of your body hair. The tall tale that daddy longlegs are the world's most venomous spiders is just a bit of an overstatement. These critters aren't even true spiders. They have been wrongly accused of packing a dangerous venomous punch. In fact, they don't have venom glands at all, and their tiny fangs can't even break human skin. It seems they got their fearsome reputation more from their spindly appearance and as a case of mistaken identity. The belief that everyone in medieval times kicked the bucket in their 30s is way off. Life expectancy is just an average. Back then, a lot of people didn't make it past childhood due to things like rampant infant mortality and risky childbirth. But if you went through those early life hurdles and hit your 20s, you had a decent shot at seeing your 50s or even 70s. Most of our medieval life expectancy data comes from noble dudes, who often ended up as battlefield statistics, skewing the numbers. Soap is often seen as the arch nemesis of cast iron cookware, but let's bust that myth with a little kitchen science. The fear is that soap will take away the precious seasoning that makes cast iron pans non-stick and awesome. Modern soaps are much gentler than those old lye-heavy ones that started this whole non-soap on cast iron rule. Today's soaps won't harm your pan seasoning, especially if it's well established. The old "wait an hour after eating before you swim" rule is more of a misconception than a medical must. The idea was that swimming right after a big meal could lead to cramps, but in reality, it's not a hard rule. Sure, your body diverts blood to your stomach for better digestion, which could, theoretically, leave less for your muscles, increasing the risk of cramps. But for most people, a little light post-snack swimming isn't a recipe for disaster. Bundling up because you think cold weather causes colds? Well, it's not exactly the air that's to blame. It's true that we often start sniffling when the temperature drops, but it's not the cold itself doing the deed. The real culprits are the viruses that cause colds, which just happen to love those lower temperatures. So while chilly weather provides a cozy playground for these germs, catching a cold still requires catching the virus. In other words, it's not the frosty weather, but the frosty weather-loving viruses that you need to watch out for. Oh look, it's that time again when a Facebook privacy hoax makes the rounds, convincing people that a simple copy-paste can magically protect their data. Yes, the classic "I do not give Facebook permission" spiel is back, charming users into thinking this status update is a legally binding shield against privacy breaches. Spoiler alert, it's not. These posts claim that declaring sovereignty over your personal content on your timeline will stop Facebook from using your photos, information, and messages. Facebook's actual policies and user agreements, which everyone agreed to by signing up, still hold the real power. Shaving a double-coated dog is okay? No, it's a big no-no, with some lasting downsides. These dogs have a soft undercoat and a tougher top coat. Shaving messes up their growth balance, leading to a mismatched and not-so-pretty coat. Plus, there's only a 50-50 chance the double coat will return to its former glory, if at all. Contrary to popular belief, shaving doesn't cool them down. It actually wrecks the coat's natural air circulation system. Other risks include matting, sunburn, and impaired temperature regulation. The coat might never look or feel the same again. Go for a de-shedding treatment. It removes excess undercoat, helps your dog stay cool, and keeps the coat in top shape, all without the drama of a full shave. It's time to look at common misconceptions and myths associated with treating frostbite. Rubbing frostbitten skin cannot help. It can actually worsen the condition and lead to tissue damage. The idea that hot water should be used for rewarming the affected areas is wrong, too. Use lukewarm water instead to avoid burns.
It turns out, starfish don't have a head. They are the head. When you first look at a starfish, you think it's got 5 arms. Scientists have always been curious about why starfish look like this, and in particular, where their heads are. Most animals, including us, have bodies that are bilaterally symmetrical, meaning you can split them down the middle and get 2 matching sides. But starfish, along with sand dollars and sea anemones, are different. They're radially symmetrical, meaning their bodies have identical parts spread out from the center. Starfish, or sea stars, are special because they have this 5-way symmetry, and you can divide them into 5 equal parts. To make this discovery, scientists used a technique called RNA tomography, which helps study genes. They focused on the genes controlling the outer layer, including the nervous system. Surprisingly, the genes associated with the head were active in the starfish's head and its arms. Yet, genes linked to the body trunk were hardly active. This suggests that starfish have a unique separation between their head and body. The study sparked new questions about how these creatures evolved and what their ancestors with trunks might have been like based on their fossil records. It also showed that genes active in the head of an acorn worm were also active in a starfish's skin, covering its entire body. These genes are the most active at the center of each arm, changing towards the arm's end to resemble genes found in the rear of other animals. Starfish lack genes for a torso. All this challenges traditional views on starfish anatomy. There's a rumor about Paul McCartney recording an ultrasonic whistle for his Shetland sheepdog at the end of the Beatles song, A Day in the Life. Dogs can hear ultrasonic sounds since their hearing ability is incredible. To move just one of their ears, dogs need to involve 18 muscles. It allows them to swiftly locate the origin of sounds, and it's another skill where they outshine us. Their awesome ears sometimes shadow their noses. Dogs' sense of smell is up to 100,000 times more acute than that of humans. While humans have around 5 million scent receptors, a bloodhound boasts up to 300 million. Another study proves that dogs and bottlenose dolphins may share a fascinating similarity with humans. They call out the names of loved ones when they become separated. This makes them the first non-human animals to do so. The research has uncovered that dolphins copy one another's signature whistles when they're separated from close pals. In the Sarasota Dolphin Research Program recordings, pairs of dolphins were held in separate nets, but they could still communicate with each other. Turns out, some of their chit-chats were mimicking the unique whistles of their dolphin buddies. Next up, we have flamingos with their peculiar dining habits. You often see them feeding with their heads positioned upside down. This distinctive behavior is linked to the anatomy of their mouths and the mechanics of maneuvering their long, elegant necks into the water. These birds are skilled filter feeders, employing their tongues as effective sieves to capture food. When a flamingo lowers its neck beneath the water, it positions its mouth essentially upside down. Then the bird closes its mouth and skillfully propels water through comb-like extensions on its beak. It also utilizes its tongue to expel the water while retaining all the gathered food. If you've watched the movie My Octopus Teacher on Netflix, you might already know that octopuses can bond with humans. But this time, we'll only focus on the anatomy of this creature. Octopuses have 3 hearts. One heart pumps blood throughout the body, and the other 2 tag teams send that blood to the animal's gills. Octopuses also have 9 brains. Each of their 8 tentacles has its very own mini-brain. These mini-brains allow each tentacle to move independently at lightning speed. There's a 9th brain in the mix, and this one oversees the entire octo nervous system. Opossums are intelligent, in a way, too. They're known for pretending to pass away when their life is threatened. When they face predators, opossums attempt to intimidate their foes by showing their teeth, hissing, and growling. Yet, when these tactics fall short, opossums resort to shutting their eyes, collapsing onto their side, and pretending to have passed away. To look more convincing, an opossum might drool, let its tongue hang out, and even excrete waste to enhance the illusion of a sudden demise. Remarkably, opossums can uphold this state for several hours, waiting until they're confident that the threat is gone. Monkeys can be loud when calling one another, but a howler monkey's shout can travel approximately 3 miles in specific situations. Males are usually louder than females. The thing is, the sound is created by pulling air through a space in an enlarged bone in the animal's throat. This bone is larger in males compared to females, and that's why males sound louder. Polar bears have black skin beneath all that fur. Their fluffy white coat is actually translucent. It only seems white because it bounces back visible light. The skin itself is jet black. These creatures are also impressive when it comes to swimming. They can hit speeds of up to 6 miles per hour in the water, which is pretty fast for such big creatures. They can swim for miles and keep going for hours. Their big paws are designed for swimming. They use them to paddle through the water while their back legs stay straight and act like a rudder, helping them steer. Since we visited polar bears, we might as well add a romantic fact about penguins here. Male Gentoo and Adelie penguins put themselves out there with proposals. They offer their potential mates precious pebbles, essential for building nests in the harsh Antarctic landscape. If the lady penguin accepts the pebble, they're in it for life, bonded and ready to mate. Another study has found that our adorable house cats share more than 95% of their genetic makeup with tigers. These little furballs also mimic many behaviors of their wild relatives, like marking territory with scents and the classic stalking and pouncing during playtime. Biologically though, a cat's brain is kind of similar to a human's. We share identical emotional regions in our brains. Cats can also make up to 100 different sounds. Owls have eye tubes or cylinders. Their rod-shaped eyes don't do the eyeball moving. Our eyes can move in almost all directions. Owls have to make a full body or full head turn to look around, all because of night vision. To master the art of seeing in the dark, they need large corneas that can scoop up every bit of light. Most nighttime critters, like slow lorises or tarsiers, have enormous eyes to get the job done. But owls have small skulls on their agenda, so those big eyes couldn't swell out. Cockroaches are notorious for their survival skills, and a key reason is their unique brain structure. They have two brains, one in their head and a more basic one near their abdomen. They're so hard to get because these critters are incredibly quick to react. They have tiny hairs on their rear end that can feel the slightest breeze. When these hairs twitch, the cockroach doesn't waste time. It instantly switches to escape mode. Research shows that a cockroach can react in just 1/20th of a second. So by the time we turn on the light or grab something to target it, the cockroach is already speeding off. Cats can have dreams. Sometimes you can see your cat's whiskers twitching or its legs kicking while it's sleeping. This doesn't necessarily mean your pet is having a nightmare. We can look at human sleep to get a clue about what's happening with our feline friends. During REM sleep, our brains get super active, almost like when we're awake. That's also the prime time for dreaming. REM sleep is named this way because of the quick movements the eyes make under the eyelids. But while our eyes might be moving, the rest of our body stays still. The focus is on what's going on in our minds. This is true for cats too. Besides an occasional twitch, cats usually don't move much when they're asleep.
I have news for you. Rats are ticklish. Well, I thought it was news. Anyway, they have a so-called laugh center in their midbrain, and it activates when someone tickles the animals or when they engage in some fun and playful activities. Scientists discovered this in 2016 after tickling the rodents on their bellies and listening to their squeaky giggles. Now, hummingbirds are the only birds we know about that can fly backward. They mostly do it when they want to move away from flowers. And here's an animal that can't go backward, a kangaroo. They can hop around and cross great distances, but the structure of their strong rear feet and big tails prevent them from walking backwards. Narwhals are those weird creatures that look like some sort of sea unicorns. That horn on their head is not a tusk. It's a giant tooth that sticks out through the upper lip of male narwhals. This tooth is probably one of the tools that plays a role in attracting ladies. Now, flamingos are not actually pink. They're born gray, but throughout their life, they eat lots of algae and other foods that contain a red-orange pigment we know as beta-carotene, like in carrots. This pigment gets broken down and ends up in their skin and feathers, which is what makes them pink. They need to eat a lot of such food to stay like that, though. If we humans wanted to change our skin color, we wouldn't be able to eat enough food rich in beta-carotene to really turn pink, or in our case, maybe even orange. Sloths are really slow. All the jokes and memes about them are true, but they're also very skilled swimmers, and they move in the water around 3 to 4 times quicker than on land. They can do breaststroke just like people, and it's an important skill for them to have because they're tropical animals that mostly live in jungles, and those areas are often flooded. Tigers are the biggest members of the feline family, even bigger than lions. And no tiger has the same set of stripes. Their coat is actually a camouflage that comes in handy when they need to find a good spot where their prey won't see them. Interestingly, their skin is striped too, not just the coat. Their stripes are as unique as our fingerprints. Now, even though they look kind of funny and innocent, you wouldn't want to bother a platypus. These wild animals are some of the few mammal species that can poison you. They have spurs on the tips of their back feet that can release venom. It's not potent enough to pose a life threat, but the sting can still be very painful and can cause swelling and other issues. When a ladybug needs to defend itself against potential predators, it starts bleeding from its knees. Now, it's not actual blood coming out of its joints. It's a certain chemical that smells bad and, therefore, repels predators. They have another mechanism that helps them survive in the harsh animal kingdom, their specific color. Predators really don't like the combinations of bright colors, such as red, orange, and black, because they know that creatures colored this way can taste awful. Roosters can get extremely noisy in the morning, but they don't go deaf because they don't even hear how loud their crowing can be. What keeps them safe is special built-in noise protection plugs. Hens have the same system that reduces the risk of hearing loss too. Not only do they have this protection, but they can also regrow cochlear hair ears if they get damaged in only a couple of days. Owls don't have eyeballs. They have something that's more like eye tubes, and they can't move them back and forth like we do with our eyeballs, which is why these birds have incredibly flexible necks. They're able to rotate their heads 270 degrees. For comparison, humans can only manage 180. That's why owls have a specific system of blood vessels in their heads. It delivers fresh blood to the brain if the bird turns its head too quickly and cuts off circulation. Just keep swimming. You may remember how Dory the blue tang sang this in Finding Nemo. Dory wasn't a shark, but that's a message some shark species need to take literally. Mako sharks, great whites, whale sharks, and some other kinds need to keep swimming. Otherwise, they'll stop breathing. We use our lungs for breathing, and some sharks use a method called buccal pumping. This means they swim with their mouths open. That way, they allow water to flow through their gills and thus extract oxygen. The most dangerous animal on our planet isn't a bear, a shark, or some toothy tiger. It's something way smaller, the mosquito. Not only is it extremely irritating, but it also transfers serious diseases such as yellow fever, malaria, or dengue fever. Annually, hundreds of thousands of people don't survive the battle with those diseases. Mosquitoes also outnumber every other creature across the globe, apart from termites and ants. Grizzly bears are incredibly strong animals with a bite powerful enough to crush a bowling ball. That's why you won't see them allowed in bowling alleys. Despite that, they're mostly light eaters. They're strong enough to make a meal out of whatever they come across, including a bison, moose, or elk, but they still like to munch on their fruits, nuts, berries, and even a small unfortunate mouse that gets lost and ends up in the predator's mouth. The inland taipan is the most venomous snake on the planet. We know it as the western taipan. It lives in Australia. Just one bite has enough venom to turn out fatal for at least 100 fully grown humans. And it can also do the job within only half an hour if you don't have anything to treat the bite right away. They say these snakes are mostly shy and they mind their own business. But, like other animals, they will attack if they feel threatened or provoked. There's a kind of turtle that can stay alive for months under the ice by breathing through its behind. When it gets colder, some animals can't find safe places to stay, so they must survive harsh winter conditions wherever they are. And while bees get cozy in their nests and bears sleep in caves, painted turtles stay in their ponds that freeze over. Since the ice limits their access to air, they extract oxygen directly from the water and breathe through their behinds. Yes, that would be handy. It's well known that ravens are incredibly intelligent animals. They're excellent at solving problems, but it seems they also have impressive social intelligence. They're very in tune with their feelings as well as the emotions of their mates. If one raven in the group feels pessimistic, it's likely to bring the others down too. A real buzzkill. When they see a bird that doesn't like certain food and expresses it in a very vivid way, they lose interest in their own food as well. The pistol shrimp is one of the loudest animals in the world, even though it's tiny, only about 3/4 of an inch long. When it senses food, it opens its large claw that can grow as long as half its body length and lets some water in. Then it snaps the claw shut extremely fast, which shoots out a very strong jet of bubbles. These bubbles can stun or even finish the prey the shrimp is trying to catch. And when the bubbles pop, it produces a snapping sound, louder than anyone would expect. Crocodiles are even scarier than we thought, because many of them can gallop like horses. They probably inherited this ability from their ancient ancestors, who were as small as cats, had long legs, and could run at speeds of about 11 miles per hour. Smaller crocodiles probably gallop when something's after them, but caimans and alligators obviously don't need to use this skill. It's you who's more likely to gallop away when you see them.
Do you hear a sound and almost instantly see a specific color? You may be part of a special group of people, about 4% of the world's population, who can experience synesthesia. You're not imagining things. A new study shows that synesthesia is real, and it has brain scans to prove it. When these synesthetic people hear colors, scans show their brain parts for sight and sound are speaking to each other. Since synesthesia seems to be genetic, some researchers picked 3 families where this feature was present. They went on to play with DNA sequencing, comparing the genes of family members with synesthesia to those without. They still don't have the complete picture of this unique feature, but they did manage to narrow it down to some 37 possible gene suspects. Sometimes, after a nap in an uncomfortable position, you might have felt your arm or leg all tingly or numb. You'd think it all has to do with poor blood circulation. In fact, it might be due to a little thing called paresthesia. This is when your body starts experiencing unusual sensations because your nerves are squeezed or irritated. Paresthesia can give you anything from a burning sensation to that annoying feeling like your arm or leg is not responding at all. It might even throw in some itching or the good old pins and needles. Usually, it shouldn't take longer than 30 minutes tops. Give the affected body part a good shake and it might speed up the process. If it takes longer than that, or if you're getting repeated episodes of paresthesia for no reason, best to check with a specialist to make sure everything's okay. You know what's also worth checking? If you've already liked this video and subscribed to the channel, just to make sure you'll never miss anything. On a regular day, you don't even think about your stomach or its chemical content. Can you imagine if one day this substance just vanished? It contains hydrochloric acid, which is also used in fertilizers, rubber, and steel. Should you ever inhale it, you'd get some serious nose and breathing trouble. Whenever you're chewing something, your stomach starts working those gastric juices. They help because they can help break down protein, activate pepsin, get rid of whatever bacteria you may have swallowed without even knowing, and signal your food to move on towards the exit. Without the acid, the food would just sit there, turning into a bacterium breeding ground. Proteins and nutrients won't get absorbed. Your lunch or dinner might rush through your system as is, and you could end up eliminating undigested food. Ugh. There's a reason why paper cuts hurt so much. For starters, they happen on your fingertips, which are very sensitive areas. That's because they're full of receptors, which are like your body's receptionists, helping you determine the size, shape, texture, and temperature of the things you touch. When you get a paper cut, these receptors get instantly triggered, sending unpleasant information to the brain. Paper cuts also aren't like a clean slice from a sharp knife because of the dullness of the paper edges. This exposes even more of those receptors. Paper cuts don't bleed much and they don't clot well either. It leaves the nerves out in the open, making the discomfort even worse. We're always using our hands, so these cuts keep reopening, taking forever to heal. Paper is often treated with chemicals that can irritate your skin too. Deja vu seems to just hit you out of nowhere. You're not a sorcerer and you're also not communicating with anyone from the beyond. It's just your brain malfunctioning. According to doctors, Déjà vu is experienced when two parts of the brain are having a bit of a misunderstanding. These two brain parts are located on each side of your skull, right above your temples. They're like the memory cards of your brain, helping you remember things like locations or other people's faces. They even decode emotions and understand language. Now, in each of these brain areas called temporal lobes, there's a region called the hippocampus. This one is responsible for short-term memories. Sometimes the brain can get small glitches, confusing the hippocampus. That's when we get déjà vu. All this process messes with your recognition memory systems, giving you that weird feeling that you've been there before, or you've already met a person you're seeing for the first time. This is a completely normal process, and you're more likely to experience déjà vu if you're between 15 and 25 years old. It also seems that people who travel a lot or have the ability to remember their dreams experience it more often. It's hard to imagine if a whole civilization could survive without anyone having sight. That's highly unlikely, and here's why. First, imagine trying to grow food when you can't even see what you're doing. Prepping the soil would turn into a nightmare, because without sight, we'd be lost in, say, a massive wheat field with no reference points. Gathering that little food wouldn't be easy either. Animals might be lurking everywhere, ready to harm us. Communication would be complicated, since we wouldn't be able to read something without touching. Even our social lives would be different. Without eyes, we'd be left to rely on voices. Talking to someone without knowing who else is listening. Creepy. If you've ever had a spicy pepper, you know it's not technically hot in terms of its temperature. So why does it feel like it's burning, even if it's just out of the fridge? Well, spicy food has these chemicals that trick your body into turning up its internal air conditioning. First, your lips and tongue feel like they're on fire. Then your nose starts to feel all runny, and you might even shed a tear or two. Your blood vessels dilate, and suddenly, your entire body temperature goes up. To cool things down, you start to sweat. Your lungs might participate as well and signal your diaphragm to pitch in some hiccups, all in an attempt to kick out the fiery intruder. In most cases, all these bodily triggers are caused by a substance called capsaicin, often found in hot peppers like habanero and cayenne. Even though we might feel like we're moving around in our dreams, we aren't because of a complex system in our bodies. This keeps your muscles from doing all sorts of outrageous things because of the wild stories our brains might be coming up with at night. It turns out that most of this brain chemistry happens during the rapid eye movement, or REM phase, about 90 minutes after you've fallen asleep. During REM, or REM, your brain is experiencing some of the weirdest dreams, while your voluntary muscles, like your arms and legs, are turned off. This muscle lockdown is the reason why some people wake up and can't move, experiencing what they call sleep paralysis. The big mystery was how the muscles got into this paralyzed state. Early on, scientists thought glycine, a neurotransmitter, was responsible. Research has shown that even if scientists blocked glycine, the muscles remained frozen. It took a while longer for scientists to find out that to keep those muscles immobile, you need both glycine and another communication chemical called GABA, or GABA. We're not as hairy as our ancestors, but we do still get little goosebumps when we're cold. It's because of these tiny muscles in our hair follicles, called arrector pili, that pull our hair upright. For furry animals, this creature helps keep them warm. But for us, it doesn't do much in terms of heat. Still, we and some other less hairy creatures kept this ability over the years. Experiments were done to figure out more about these goosebumps. They found these three key players: those arrector pili muscles, sympathetic nerves, and hair follicles. When they played around with the nerves, hair growth slowed down. The nerves and our hair follicles work like partners, making chemical synapses. So, goosebumps aren't just a quick fix to lower temperatures. They might also tell our stem cells to grow more hair in the long run. That's why losing those muscle cells could be linked to going bald.
Are humans the only creatures on Earth that enjoy eating spicy food? Probably. I mean, it's not like you've ever seen a giraffe ordering a curry takeout at your local restaurant. Well, that might not be completely true. It turns out that tree shrews, these adorable little critters, have a burning passion for spicy food too. Asian researchers stumbled upon this fascinating fact. Tree shrews are the only non-human mammals who intentionally seek out mouth-numbing, tongue-tingling, tear-inducing spicy delicacies. Scientists detected a sneaky genetic mutation in these courageous tree shrews. They feature a certain receptor that is responsible for detecting pain caused by the scorching sensation of capsaicin, the infamous hot chemical found in chili peppers. It's like having a secret superpower that shields them from feeling as much discomfort as the rest of us mere mortals. But how did scientists come to this astonishing revelation? They decided to venture into the wild and looked at 5 wild tree shrews and a group of 6 wild mice, acting as the control group for the test. The team then took notes on how each of these tiny mammals reacted to the fiery capsaicin. No surprises when it came to the mice. They really didn't have a good time. But the tree shrews remained remarkably calm and collected. The secret behind the tree shrews' spice resilience was a single amino acid that sets them apart from their mouse counterparts. While many plants have evolved to deter animals from munching on them by producing pungent chemicals, the tree shrews have managed to outsmart Mother Nature. The scientists behind this study believe that the genetic mutation responsible for the shrew's spice tolerance is an incredible evolutionary adaptation. It allowed them to expand their culinary horizons and survive in diverse environments. For us humans, though, spices aren't a modern discovery. Even back in prehistoric Denmark, our ancestors had a spicy side. Researchers found some ancient pots that were used for cooking around 6,000 years ago. And guess what? They found traces of a peppery, mustard-like flavor. Now, when exactly did humans start seasoning their food? That's a bit of a mystery. Take coriander seeds, for instance, which are heavily featured in many Asian, Middle Eastern, and Mediterranean dishes. They were found at a site in Asia dating back a whopping 23,000 years. Unfortunately, we can't be absolutely sure if they were indeed used to add flavor to food. They might have been just growing there randomly. However, solid evidence has been uncovered that confirms people in Northern Europe were intentionally spicing up their food around 6,100 years ago. This is the earliest known record of spiced food in Europe, and possibly the world. To get this spicy scoop, the researchers examined the leftovers stuck inside 74 cooking pots from ancient sites in Denmark and Germany. These pots had all the chemical signatures of meat or fish, and they even found phytoliths, which are little mineral traces left by food. These phytoliths were similar to the ones found in garlic mustard seeds, a local plant known for its zesty kick, but not much nutritional value. Here's where it gets interesting. There were way more phytoliths in the pot residue than in the surrounding sediment. That means those clever people intentionally brought the garlic mustard from elsewhere and tossed it into the pots. What's even more amazing is that these pots predate the arrival of agriculture in the region. So we're talking about good old hunter-gatherers here. Now, let's ponder this spicy conundrum. Why are humans so obsessed with adding a kick to their cuisine? We've got a couple of theories brewing. One is that even the Neanderthals used plants for their medicinal properties, and the garlic mustard seems to have been used as a disinfectant back in the day. So maybe our ancestors had a knack for combining flavor and health benefits. Another idea suggests that humans started seasoning their food because some spices have antimicrobial properties that protect against food spoilage. In other words, our taste buds might have evolved to love the spice for a good reason. It kept us safe. Others prefer to keep things simple and believe there might not be a functional reason behind our love for spice. It may all come down to the joy of taste. Next time you add a dash of chili to your meal, remember that you're continuing a tradition that goes back thousands of years. Have you ever wondered why spicy food feels like it's setting your taste buds on fire? It's because spicy food contains that mischievous little compound called capsaicin. When you take a bite of that fiery dish, capsaicin latches onto the specific receptors inside your mouth. Now, these receptors weren't initially meant to detect capsaicin at all. They evolved to sense heat, acting like the mouth's own heat detectors, keeping us from munching on foods that could cause harm. But here's the funny part. Capsaicin and VR1 receptors ended up in this relationship by accident. When capsaicin waltzes into the picture and triggers those VR1 receptors, our brain gets a signal that shouts, "Hot alert!" And that's why we perceive spicy food as hot, even though, technically, it doesn't have a high temperature. It's just our brains being tricked into thinking we're eating something that could burn us. Although spicy food doesn't actually burn, our brain falls for the trick and believes we're in some sort of discomfort. So why do we keep going back for more? Scientists have been scratching their heads over this curious phenomenon and uncovered a fascinating explanation tied to our brain's pain relief system. You see, when our brains think we're hurt, it releases endorphins for us to get better as soon as possible. These endorphins not only dull the bad sensation, but also shower us with a nice feeling. It's no wonder we adore spicy food. The spicy saga goes even further. Scientists have been delving into capsaicin's potential beyond the realm of taste buds. They've been exploring its abilities to provide relief and have stumbled upon some intriguing findings. Throughout history and across various cultures, capsaicin has been used to tackle an array of ailments. From fever to different types of aches, capsaicin has made its mark. In certain communities in Peru, they burn leaves containing capsaicin to produce steam, which helps alleviate headaches. In the Dominican Republic, these leaves are ingested as a form of treatment, and in the Philippines, capsaicin-rich fruits are sought after to treat people's joints. Now, you might assume that the spiciness of peppers, for instance, is a clear message from Mother Nature screaming, "Don't eat me, silly human!" That's exactly what scientists initially believed. They thought that pepper plants evolved their fiery flavors to keep us mammals from gobbling up their fruits. However, recent research on wild peppers suggests that deterring big mammals like us is actually just a side gig. The real reason behind their heat is likely their way of defending against much smaller threats. Nasty insects and pesky mold. Back in the 1890s, scientists proposed the direct deterrent hypothesis to explain why peppers evolved to be spicy. According to this theory, peppers wanted to make sure their fruits were feasted upon by birds, not by clumsy creatures like us. You see, birds' heat-sensing nerves are blissfully immune to capsaicin's fiery charms, making them the perfect seed dispersers. The direct deterrent hypothesis took a hit when scientists looked at the natural variation in pepper spiciness. It turns out that the heat levels of pepper species tend to vary, probably because producing capsaicin isn't easy. So if these peppers can get away with being mild, they stop producing the spicy stuff altogether. When scientists ventured into pepper-packed landscapes where both mild and hot peppers grow, they made an intriguing discovery. Mammals, even when faced with milder peppers, don't really fancy eating them. Also, peppers don't crank up the spice levels just because there are more animals around. It's like they're saying, "Hey mammals, you're not the main concern here. Instead, the spiciness of peppers seems to be closely tied to the local climate. Spicier peppers tend to thrive in areas with more rainfall. Why? Because of fungal damage. That's right, fungi wreak havoc on our beloved peppers. It turns out that mold, not mammals, might be the true reason behind spiciness.
If you're smelling something fishy at home and it's not your delicious salmon dinner, then it's time to check your electrical equipment. That stinky smell could mean your wires are frayed, your breakers are faulty, or your circuits are overloaded. And let me tell you, those plastic-coated wires emit a smell worse than a tuna sandwich left out in the sun. So don't be a fish out of water and get your electrical system checked ASAP. If you smell rotten eggs in your house, call the plumber straight away. The most obvious reason is the sewage and drain problems, such as contamination. But such a smell can also be produced if you've got problems with the water heater. Another possible problem might be a gas leak. Manufacturers add some distinct bad-smelling chemical to natural gas, so that people could notice even the tiniest gas leak on the spot. This one may not be as easy to spot as a unicorn in Central Park, but it's still important to know. Have you ever caught a whiff of something funky before your stove ignites? That's the smell of carbon monoxide. And let me tell you, it's no joke. This sneaky gas can be extremely dangerous if you inhale too much of it. And the worst part is that it's completely odorless and tasteless. That weird scent you're picking up, it's actually added to the gas to give you a heads up that danger is lurking. So, next time you catch a funky smell coming from your stove, don't just brush it off as last night's leftover lasagna. It's not uncommon to find mold in your home wherever water is present and trapped, like an unknown leak in the walls. Mold spores can grow as a result of this moist patch and can cause pretty serious health issues. Bedbugs have a thing for shoes. Yep, they love to hide in them, but only if the conditions are right. So if you've got a pair of shoes that you hardly ever wear, watch out. Bedbugs might just be snuggling up in there for a cozy nap. But don't worry, there's a trick to keeping those pesky bugs out of your kicks. Leather shoes are a bit too smooth for bedbugs to crawl on, so they're less likely to hide in those. Athletic shoes, on the other hand, are like a playground for bedbugs. All those interesting textures and patterns make for the perfect hiding spot. So if you want to keep bedbugs out of your shoes, just wear them regularly. Those creepy crawlers don't like anything that moves or gets disturbed often. And who knows, you might even squish a few of them in the process. Talk about a win-win situation. So go ahead, put on those shoes and show those bedbugs who's boss. Your feet and your sanity will thank you for it. If your nostrils are being assaulted by an unpleasant odor, it might be time to check your mattress. Recent scientific studies have revealed that a 7-year-old mattress can harbor more bacteria than a sci-fi movie set in outer space. Over 16 million colony-forming units per square inch. That's enough to make even the bravest of us want to sleep in a hazmat suit. But fear not, for there is a solution to this gross problem. Enter baking soda, the unsung hero of household cleaning. Simply sprinkle some of this magical powder onto your mattress, let it sit for half an hour while you go do something fun like watching cat videos, and then vacuum it up with a brush attachment. Voila! Your bed will smell fresher than a field of daisies on a spring day. So don't let those pesky bacteria get the best of you. And who knows? Maybe your newly freshened mattress will even inspire some sweet dreams, or at least keep the nightmares at bay. Have you ever noticed that your towel smells like a swamp monster's armpit? Yeah, that's because you've been using it for too long. Don't be a bacteria hoarder. Switch out your towel after 3 uses. And if you really want to banish those stinky germs, toss in some baking soda every now and then. Your nose, and if you share an apartment, your roommates will definitely thank you. If your bathroom smells like a swamp, it could be because of stagnant water or some gross residue in the drain. Don't worry, if the plumber can't come until tomorrow, you can hack the smell by adding a few drops of your favorite essential oil to the toilet paper roll. It won't solve the problem, but at least you won't feel like you're suffocating. Now, onto the stinky toilet brush. Squirt some scented detergent right into the holder, or make your own DIY scent with distilled water and essential oil. It will get rid of bacteria, and the essential oil will hide bad smells. Just make sure you're allergic to the oils you choose. Moving on to the dishwasher. Did you know that mold can grow in there? Gross, right? Run a dry heat cycle with no dishes but some vinegar instead. Make sure to flush all the interiors, including the filters and panels. And if your silverware basket is looking a little moldy, soak it in some diluted antibacterial detergent before rinsing it thoroughly. Now let's talk about weird sounds in your house. Clicking and knocking in the winter or fall could be from turning on the heating or radiators. If there's condensed steam stuck in the system, try bleeding the radiators. And if you hear a bubbling sound, it could be a water leak or sediment in the water heater. Shut off the main water and listen. If the sound stops, call the plumber. If not, try draining the tank. If you're moving into a new house, check the walls and ceiling for any red flags. Fresh paint could be hiding something, so ask the landlord what's up. And stay away from popcorn ceilings. Not only are they ugly, but they contain asbestos. Asbestos is like a bowl of alphabet soup. It's made up of all these hard-to-pronounce crystal fibers: chrysotile, anthophyllite, tremolite, crocitolite, actinolite, and amosite. But don't let their wacky names trick you. Asbestos is one tough cookie. It can withstand high temperatures, chemicals, and even electricity. No wonder it was such a popular building material back in the day. Asbestos is like a sneaky ninja. It can break down into teeny tiny fibers that are so small they can float around in the air for days. And if you accidentally breathe in these fibers, it's like inviting a dangerous guest to your lungs. Yikes. So let's give asbestos the boot and keep our lungs happy and healthy. Just be careful if you're renovating an old home. You never know if you'll uncover a surprise layer of asbestos roofing. Odor-causing bacteria love to party in your kitchen sink and drain. And don't even get us started on the garbage disposal scraps. It's like a bacteria buffet in there. But there's a fun solution for you. Once a week, throw a party of your own by inviting 6 ice cubes, 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 3 thin lemon slices, and 1 teaspoon of bleach to the disposal. Turn up the music. Turn on the disposal and let those ice cubes do their thing. When the party's over, rinse with cold water for 30 seconds and voila! A fresh and clean sink. Your new sofa or cabinets could be secretly releasing some stinky gases into the air. Yep, it's true. These gases, called volatile organic compounds aka VOCs, can make your nose and throat feel pretty irritated. And if that's not bad enough, they can even give you a headache or make you feel dizzy. Yikes! But don't worry, I've got your back. If you can, try opening up some windows to get some fresh air flowing. And if you're on the hunt for some new furniture or home products, keep an eye out for low VOC options. Your nose will thank you. Plus, who wants to be surrounded by stinky furniture anyways?
Did you know that chickens can jump and fly too? Domestication of the chicken dates back to at least 2000 BCE. They do have the required feathers and muscles to fly, but they don't do it much anymore, hundreds of years after they were domesticated. But if you give them the right motivation, they can do that. If they think the other side of the fence is cool, they can jump up to 6 feet. Some hens hop on the trees to roost. Picture a tree with a couple of chickens on it. Looks so funny. Their motivation is safety. The tree serves as a cover for them in the daytime and protects them from winged predators. Similarly, at night, the tree turns into a shelter from wind and rain and the possible attacks from ground predators. This doesn't have to be in the wild. Farms where chickens can wander around freely also have tree nests. Some sneaky chickens leave their coop and jump onto the trees. So, many chicken owners search for ways to keep them under control. Hey Siri, search for how to deal with jumping chickens? I'm now moving on to everyday items and the secrets they held. The twist ties and plastic bags on bread packs don't have random colors. They are color-coded based on the daily bread baked. Each day of the week has an assigned color. For example, blue twist tie stands for Monday, green for Tuesday, and red for Thursday. Now you can figure out how fresh your bread is. Color codes are helpful for employees too. They can easily spot the old loaves on the shelves. There's a popular saying, you are what you eat. It turns out that our guts are also there to make us happy. Serotonin is the feel-good hormone. It's also a neurotransmitter. Many of us immediately associate it with our brains. Yet, interestingly, around 95% of the body's serotonin is produced in our digestive tract. Many of us often use the words herbs and spices interchangeably, but these are different seasonings. Spices come from every part of a plant or tree, like root, seed, or bark. But herbs are the plant's leaves. We generally add spice to food in roasting and during cooking. Herbs release their aroma faster, so we add them at the very end. Do you ever feel you've been watched and discovered that you're right? Well, that spider sense-like feeling is called gaze detection. Your brain senses when someone is staring at you. Research explains this as a sort of defense mechanism. A direct gaze can be a symbol of dominance, and that can be a potential threat. Humans evolved with this feeling in time. Strangely, it works when the person looks right at you. If their gaze is off just a few degrees to the left or right of you, your brain won't react this way. What about the urge to rewatch your favorite movies or listen to your songs over and over? You're not alone. This habit has some benefits for your mental health. This behavior eases your mind. When people feel overwhelmed, they'll have less self-control and be less motivated to complete hard tasks. You are drawn into The Office's first season again because when you watch, listen, or do something familiar, you don't have to spend the effort to monitor what you're thinking. So, it's a good way to have a quick mental reset. Here's another feeling. Imagine you're enjoying the sunset on a terrace or at the top of the Eiffel Tower. Out of nowhere, your inner voice whispers, "What if I jump?" This isn't coming from a darker state. You know, it's just sort of a feeling that appears when you're high up. There is a name for this. The call of the void, or the high place phenomenon, is a relatively new research topic, but more studies are on the way. Jim Carrey's great performance in The Truman Show is surely remembered. Did you know that the Truman Show delusion is an actual thing? The phenomenon is an issue related to cognitive neuropsychiatry. People with this delusion believe that they're being filmed and that the footage will be broadcasted for entertainment. There was a time when aluminum was more precious than gold. I know, it's hard to believe. We now wrap our sandwiches on this everyday item. If we go back to the 19th century, we would see aluminum as a hard-to-get element because it was literally hard to obtain until innovators found a way to extract it on large industrial scales. Then, the reign of aluminum was over. There are stories about the French ruler Napoleon III having an aluminum cutlery set that he served food to his special guests. We might as well talk about a time traveler's party held in 2009. The theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking invited time travelers to hang out. There was a huge banner hung up with the words, "Welcome, time travelers." No one showed up. But maybe travelers had prior engagements, and that's why they didn't attend the party. I swear I'm not crying because no one showed up to that awesome party. I was just cutting an onion. Why do we burst into tears when we chop onions? Because of a particular enzyme. Is there a solution? Next time, get some damp paper towel and put it on the cutting board next to the onion. The acidity that comes from the enzyme will go towards the wet paper instead of your eyes. The ancient Egyptian civil calendar was quite similar to the one we use now. They had 365 days divided into 12 months. But instead of spreading a 31st some months, they would add those extra days to the end of the year. Now, let's turn our cameras to the animal kingdom again. Is there a benefit for zebras to have their fascinating pattern? Scientists asked this question too and experimented. They dressed up horses with zebra look-alike coats. The coat was covering the whole body of the horses but their heads. It turns out that zebra patterns repel flies. Scientists observed that flies only go for the heads of the animals and stay away from the horse bodies. Ants are known as hardworking animals, even in the tails. That's got a legit reflection in real life. They can carry up to 20 times more weight than their own body weight. These insects have other noble qualities too. If an ant gets seriously injured, it'll refuse treatment from the colony's paramedic ant. The ant knows that it can't make it, so instead of wasting the colony's resources, this ant forces the paramedic ant to carry on without it. Camels can survive around 15 days without drinking water. Many people assume that they store water in their humps. No, humps are for food storage in the form of fat. The water is kept in their bloodstream. Speaking of camels, in some countries, there's a tradition to hold camel beauty contests. For instance, a contest was held in the 2022 World Cup in Qatar as an attraction. You see a giant housefly in the house, but it flees from your ninja's hands. You might think that nature will take care of it in a couple of days, but actually, houseflies can live for about a month or two. The next fact is about an emergency on the road. Detachable car headrests can be used as an escape tool. You can break the window with the headrests if you can't leave the car by the doors. You should wedge the headrest between the glass and the windowsill. Aim a corner. Then, you hit the headrest as hard as you can to break the glass safely. You might have to hit a couple of times, but it eventually shatters. Don't give up after one try. Don't be shy. Share your wow facts with us.
I bet you're dreaming of traveling deep into space, but I'm just as sure you don't know even half of all those amazing things that are happening in our home solar system, like ice-spewing volcanoes on Pluto, a potential giant planet lurking on the outskirts of our solar system beyond Neptune, or a giant canyon the size of the United States on Mars. Let's have a look. First of all, let's travel closer to our Sun and see how insanely massive it is. Want some proof? Well, 99.86% of all the mass of the solar system is the mass of the Sun. In particular, hydrogen and helium it's made of. The remaining 0.14% is mostly the mass of the solar system's 8 planets. I live on one of those. Oh, and even though you might not have noticed it, we live inside the Sun. Wait, I didn't mean we're the inhabitants of the red-hot ball of light approximately 93 million miles away. No. The fact is that the Sun's atmosphere stretches far beyond its visible surface, and our planet is right within its reach. In fact, it's the gusts of solar winds from the Sun which create such breathtaking phenomenon as the northern and southern lights. Oh, and while speaking of the solar system, you must know that it's a whopping 4.6 billion years old. Scientists came to this conclusion after they studied the oldest material they could get. I mean, meteorites, of course. The solar system is also breathtakingly vast. You'd have to travel 11 billion miles away from Earth before leaving it. Wow, just think of the frequent flyer miles you'd get. Uranus rotates on its side, and astronomers have no idea how the planet chose such an unusual position. The culprits could be ancient mega-powerful collisions, but so far, it's just a theory. By the way, Uranus is the only planet sitting on its side. Its equator is nearly at a right angle to its orbit. The ocean on Jupiter is larger than any other on the rest of the solar system's planets. But wait, it's not the ocean you think about. The one on Jupiter isn't made of water. It contains metallic hydrogen, and its depth is a staggering 25,000 miles. This is actually almost the same as the circumference of Earth. Volcanoes on Earth are different from those on Pluto, like fire and ice. And I mean it literally. While we have scorching hot lava spilling volcanoes on our planet, volcanoes on Pluto spit ice. When frozen, water expands, and this enormous pressure builds up until one day, bang, the ice erupts. In the process, a new cryovolcano is formed. By the way, as you may remember, Pluto used to be a planet, but this title was taken away in 2006 by some astronomical bureaucrats. Later, Pluto was reclassified as a dwarf planet. But the most unexpected fact about this space body is that its diameter is smaller than that of the U.S. See for yourself. The greatest distance across the country, from Maine to Northern California, is about 2,700 miles. As for Pluto, it's only 1,470 miles across. Now, even if you're a tiny celestial body, you can still have a moon of your own. In 1993, the Galileo probe was traveling past a miniature asteroid that was no more than 20 miles across. Imagine astronomers' surprise when it discovered that the little thing had a 1-mile-wide moon. Since then, scientists have found tons of moons orbiting minor planets of our solar system. Jupiter's moon, Io, exists in eternal chaos due to hundreds of smoking volcanoes on its surface. If you decided to visit this place, you'd see the smoke from these volcanoes billowing up high into Io's atmosphere. At any given moment, here on Earth, you can stumble across a rock that once came from Mars. After scientists analyzed the chemical content of some meteorites found in the Sahara Desert, Antarctica, and other places all over our planet, they came to the shocking conclusion that lots of those have a Martian origin. In many sci-fi movies about space, the main character accidentally gets into an asteroid belt and has to try hard to get away from countless rocks that threaten to damage their spacecraft. Well, it's nothing like the real thing. The only asteroid belt astronomers know about is located between Mars and Jupiter. There are thousands of asteroids in this region, but they're so widely spaced that the chance of collision is almost zero. Now, beyond the orbit of Neptune, there's a mysterious Kuiper belt filled with massive icy objects. The most curious thing about this space formation, though, is that scientists fail to explain the pattern of its movement. The only explanation they have is that Neptune might be hiding from our sight a ginormous planet. This hypothetical planet has already got the name Planet 9, and all we have to do is wait until its existence is confirmed, or not. Unlike what most people believe, there's water all over the solar system, and someone should wipe it up, huh? For starters, it's a pretty common component of comets and asteroids. You can find water in the shallowed craters of the Moon and Mercury. Mars has some ice at its poles, too. The same goes for smaller members of the solar system, like dwarf planet Ceres or Saturn's moon Enceladus. Astronomers even suspect that Jupiter's moon Europa might have some life. Under its frozen and cracked surface, there's likely to be liquid water. Europa is smaller than Earth, but it may host a giant and deep ocean that could contain twice as much water as all the oceans on our planet combined. Now, you might know that Mercury is the smallest planet in our solar system. It's also very dense, the second densest after Earth. But this mini-planet is getting even smaller and denser. After the Messenger spacecraft did its first orbital mission at Mars and mapped the entire planet, astronomers found out that Mercury is very likely to be a tectonically active planet. On its surface, there are cliff-like landforms, also known as fault scarps. They're quite small, which makes scientists think that they appeared not so long ago. In other words, the planet might still be contracting. Now, look at these magnificent rings. You can say without any doubt that this planet is Saturn. People have known about its rings since the 1600s when the first telescopes were invented. But Saturn isn't that unique. Nowadays, we know that every planet in the outer solar system, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter, has a system of rings. And since we've started talking about the planets of the outer solar system, let's have a look at Neptune. This ice giant is around 30 times as far from the Sun as our home planet, which means it gets less light and heat from our star. But the planet radiates a lot more heat than it's taking. If we compare Neptune to nearby Uranus, we'll see that even though Uranus is closer to the Sun, it emits almost the same amount of heat as Neptune. Astronomers haven't figured out why it happens yet. One of the most unusual moons in the outer solar system is Uranus's moon Miranda. It has craters, sharp ridges, and other bizarre disruptions on its surface. Such phenomena are usually the result of volcanic activity. But Miranda is way too small to generate such a large amount of heat on its own. Astronomers think that it might be the gravitational pull from Uranus that heats and contorts Miranda's surface. But so far, it's just a theory. And there's no truth to the story that Miranda has a brother moon, Lin-Manuel. Finally, our solar system isn't the only one in the Milky Way galaxy. Far from it. The galaxy we live in houses over 100 billion solar systems. And if it's just our galaxy alone, what can we say about the whole universe?
No, you can't see the Great Wall of China from space. It's a cool myth, but it's still a myth and has nothing to do with reality. NASA confirmed it, and now you know it too. Still, the wall is a magnificent place, and you're lucky today. I'm taking you there, so fasten your seatbelts. We're going to China, the biggest Asian country, the third biggest country in the world, and with over 1.3 billion people living there, is still the most populated one, even though India is getting closer and will probably take the first place soon. China is also one of the oldest nations in the world. It has 3,500 years of continuous written history, but the civilization existed long before that. Historians believe that China wasn't populated by settlers that came from somewhere else. The Chinese civilization most likely got formed from local Stone Age people who lived on the territory since the prehistoric period. So no wonder that the country is full of history and ancient landmarks, and I'll show you a couple. We are at the Great Wall. It's over 13,000 miles long, almost 5 times the distance between New York and Los Angeles, or a bit longer than the distance between North and South Poles. This is impressive, even today. Of course, it didn't take a day to build it. In fact, the wall was being built for centuries. Maybe you know that ancient cities had walls around them to protect the locals from the invaders? Yes, Chinese cities had them too. The first Chinese emperor united the country in 220 BC and got a brilliant but very ambitious idea to turn all city walls into one big wall that would defend the country's borders. So the process started. In the beginning, the wall was made of rammed earth and wood. Every next emperor would pick up the big wall project, strengthening and extending it, repairing, but also modernizing construction techniques. Some used brick to build the wall, some moved on to granite and marble blocks. Watchtowers and platforms weren't there from the beginning as well. They were added 19 centuries after the construction started. So the wall is quite inconsistent in terms of material, but it only adds more charm to the construction and shows how much effort and time it took. You can notice that some bricks have writing carved on them. They were left by the workers who were building the wall. The purpose of those writings is quality assurance. They contain such information as location, quantity, and responsible officials. So in case of problems with the quality of materials or constructions, it would be known who was responsible for that. Also, mind that the wall is poisonous. To prevent erosion of the wall by insects, arsenic, a poisonous chemical element, was used in construction. So better not lick it in case you had this weird urge. The construction stopped at the end of the 19th century because the wall lost its strategic and military importance in the world due to technological advances. Walls are way less efficient than they used to be, coming close to zero efficiency. So the construction lasted over 2,000 years, still making it the longest construction project in the world. Unfortunately, today the Great Wall isn't in the best shape. It's estimated that only 8% of the wall is in good condition, and the rest is considerably damaged. Also, around 1/3 of the wall has disappeared without a trace due to both natural erosion and human damage. Also, many bricks were taken away from it in the last century to use in building farms and homes. The wall is being deconstructed stone by stone even today, but this time by tourists. Quite a few of them take a stone as a souvenir. That's a total of a lot of stones, considering that over 50 million tourists visit the Great Wall every year. So we're not taking a souvenir from our today's trip, just preserving the memories. Let's now pay a visit to the Forbidden City. It's an imperial palace that took 16 years to build and was completed 600 years ago. To this day, it's the largest palace in the world. It has 980 buildings and over 8,000 rooms. Why forbidden? Well, centuries ago, ordinary people like you and me couldn't just walk the streets of that town, since it was considered a divine place and was home to the emperor. No one could enter or leave the city without the emperor's permission. Today, the Chinese more often refer to it as former palace, but of course in Chinese. I just can't pronounce that. The designs there aren't random at all. The details reflect the traditional Chinese architecture, and even the colors are chosen with the help of feng shui. The roofs of the city are yellow, which represents the supreme power of the emperor. Most walls and pillars of the city are red, representing fire, earth, and strong support. The floors there are made of so-called gold brick. These are not actual gold, but surprisingly, they are just as valuable. It's very hard to make them, and especially to copy the ancient technique. 2 original tiles from the Forbidden City were sold for 800,000 yuan. It's 115,000 US dollars. You can also see animal statues on roofs. Just like colors, animals have meaning in Chinese culture. Dragons, phoenixes, and lions are the most powerful ones. Dragons symbolize strength and good luck and are crucial for the culture. They appear everywhere, in idioms, legends, astrology, art, and so on. In ancient China, emperors were considered sons of dragons, so it seems like the Targaryens aren't the only ones after all. And ordinary people weren't even allowed to have items with dragons. As for a phoenix, in Chinese mythology, their rare appearance during the ascent to the throne of a new emperor is a good sign of harmony. In feng shui, it's also a symbol of luck, and when used correctly, it's believed to bring positive energy to the house. Lions signify strength and power. They always come in pairs, a male and a female, and they're the guards. The number of animal statues on the roof signifies the importance of the building. The city is made of wood, and without any nails used, they are considered violent, so they aren't welcome. You can imagine that a wooden city is a serious fire hazard. A little fire and the city with a 6th century history will quickly turn to ashes. So, fire prevention is taken very seriously there. The city has a whole bunch of firefighting equipment, and there's even a special fire brigade that knows the whole layout of the city better than their own apartment and watches the city every day. Walking around the city, you can notice something very unusual. No birds are sitting on the roofs here, ever. When it was built, the birds were taken into account, and the engineers constructed the roofs in a particular way to ensure that no bird can land and sit on them. The roof spines are wider than the width of birds' claws, and the slope of each roof is higher. Also, the roofs are made of slippery tiles, so the birds can't land there. What do they have against the birds? Well, this way the city stays cleaner and looks more magnificent. So, there are no birds, but there are over 100 cats in the city. They actually are an important part of this story. Some of these kitties are royal descendants. You see, 2 royal dynasties that lived in the city kept cats. The dynasties later collapsed, but the cats stayed in the city and have lived there ever since. Of course, some stray cats have joined the royalty over the years. But hey, no one minds it, and no DNA test has been made to see who's royal and who's not. After all, they all equally patrol the city, hunt mice, and possibly some stranded birds, and guard the city. So all cats are welcome. I have a collection of questions you've always wanted the answers to. Let's go! First, an observation. Cookies and baguettes are basically kinds of bread. So my question is, why, when left outside for the night, a cookie gets soft and a baguette becomes hard? It doesn't make any sense. Well, the thing is, cookies are sugary bread. The sugar and salt in them soak up the moisture from the atmosphere, so they get soft. Baguettes don't have much salt and sugar, so they don't attract water and just dry out. Superglue sticks everything to everything, but how come it doesn't get stuck to the tube? Turns out that the glue needs some compound with hydrogen to polymerize. In the tube, there's just oxygen and no water, but outside, there's plenty of moisture. Also, this explains why the stuff always sticks so well to your fingers. They're warm and perfectly moist. I'm sure you cried at least once when cutting an onion. Why does it happen? So onions and garlic contain amino acids, and one of the compounds gets decomposed when being sliced. It turns into an irritator when it comes in contact with water, in particular, your eyes. Your eyes release tears to wash the irritant away, so that's why you cry. There are a couple of tricks that can prevent it. When cutting an onion, try keeping a sugar cube between your teeth. It'll absorb the irritant. Another life hack is to hold a small piece of bread between your lips. It can help you too. Why do you see things when rubbing your eyes? These colors and shapes are called phosphenes. The reason why you see them is that when rubbing, you increase the pressure in your eyeballs and activate the neurons of the retina that process visual information. Once they're activated, your brain interprets it as seeing something. When you don't get enough sleep or are just too tired, you get those dark circles around your eyes. Want to know why? The skin under the eyes is very thin, so blood vessels are very close to the surface there, and you can see any difference easily. If you have a lack of sleep, your skin gets paler, and the blood vessels are even more visible. So you can see those dark circles showing through the skin. Also, with age, the skin naturally gets thinner, so that's why older people tend to have dark circles. But if you're young, just try to get more sleep. Let's pay a bit of attention to backpacks. They have a few interesting features. First, some of them have sternum straps, and they are quite helpful. They allow you to redistribute the weight of the backpack a bit, lifting some of it from your shoulders. Not much, but just enough to make your backpack lighter and easier to carry. And of course, the sternum straps prevent the shoulder straps from sliding off. Okay, the next thing is gear loops. And probably from the name of it, you already have an idea of what you need them for. You can strap in some useful gear you need with you, like trekking poles or shovels. Some gear will need to be secured to do it. Drop the handle through the loop and rotate it upward. Then, secure it with the elastic hook at the top, and you're golden. And yes, all backpacks have loops. Actually, I never thought of their purpose until today. Some people say that if you slide your thumbs through them, it makes the backpack sit tighter on your back, making it more comfortable. Other people just rest their hands there, but the reason why they're there is probably to prevent the ends from sliding back from the buckles. That would be quite a headache to slide them back all the time, right? Okay, let's look into some other ordinary stuff we've never paid attention to. Let's take, for example, jeans. They have those metal rivets. It turns out that they've been there as long as jeans exist. Jacob Davis, the man who made the first pair of jeans, added copper rivets to places where the pants were more likely to rip to make them stronger. So it was a crucial detail to keep jeans together. Today, they have a more decorative purpose because they're distinctive and traditional for jeans. Also, many zippers have the letters YKK engraved on them. Those are the initial letters of Yoshida Kogyo Kabushiki Gaisha. It's the name of a Japanese company that can be translated as Yoshida Manufacturing Shareholding Company. It's the largest zipper manufacturer in the world, so all zippers produced by them are marked with these letters. It's estimated that the company produces half of all zippers in the world. That's why you see their zippers more often than any others. Have you noticed that canned and bottled soda seems to taste different? You're not wrong, that's actually true, and there's even science behind it. Chemists say that aluminum cans have a polymer layer that absorbs some of the soda's taste, so cans indeed change the taste. Chemicals in a plastic bottle can add some acetaldehyde, a byproduct that gets formed while plastic is melted, to the drink. So, they also change the taste a bit. You never really drink the original drink. If you want to try the real thing, buy sodas in glass bottles. When soda is stored this way, its taste is the most similar to the original one. Plastic bottles with soft drinks have 5 bumps on the bottom, and water and juice plastic bottles have almost flat bottoms, except for a little kink. It's not random. A plastic bottle is made by putting a plastic tube into a mold and blowing some air inside to make it expand until it takes the needed shape. The problem is that at the bottom, the bottle will always have an outward kink that will make the bottle unstable. To avoid it, some air is also pushed inward from the bottom, creating that small punt at the base of it. Flat bottle bottoms are common because they need less plastic to be made, but soft drinks and sparkling water need special treatment. These liquids have internal pressure that can push the plastic outward, messing up with the punt and the stable form of a bottle. So, soda bottles have a curved shape because this way they're more pressure resistant. Compare folding a regular piece of paper to folding a paper tube. The latter will have more resistance. In the same way, curved plastic is more resistant to any pressure. Take a closer look at your bag of chips. You can probably find these little colored circles. They're made by the manufacturer to test the print that is used on the package. They're called color control patches. The circles are not the same palette as the final package. They are layered on top of each other to achieve the final color of the bag. So why do manufacturers need them again? Imagine that something is off and the printing machine prints a bunch of wrong packages. That's a lot of wasted money. So, these control patches are there to make sure that the final print is going to be correct. If they're off, the manufacturer will know that the whole package is going to be off too. These patches allow the printers to find a surplus or a deficiency of color and solve the issue. But don't worry if you don't find these circles. They probably just got cut off. Take a good look at a milk jug. There's often an inverted circle on one of the sides. This dimple is there to make the jug more resistant and to prevent it from rupturing if the jug falls on the floor. The dimple gives some more space for the liquid to expand. Also, as the expiration date approaches, the microbes in the milk start to expel some gases. As more and more of them get trapped inside, the pressure in the jug rises. The dimple accommodates the expansion and prevents the jug from bursting. Illusion magic is a performing art, and when done right, it can make us gasp and forget that it's just a trick. But does anyone mind? After all, it's good to live in a world where magic is real, even if it's just an act. People have been performing magic tricks for ages, and the first illusionists started to perform in ancient Egypt, Rome, and Greece. The most famous trick from there is the one with cups and balls, making them disappear and reappear, change colors, and so on. But don't think that's all magicians could do in the ancient times. The first levitation tricks date back to those times too. Everything was so shocking to the public that they believed that the magicians doing their cups and balls tricks had supernatural powers. Ancient Greeks especially admired magic tricks. They were even making statues in honor of their famous magicians. Still, around the 4th century, the attitude started to change. People started seeing magic tricks as dangerous sorcery, and early illusionists started to get penalized. Being a magician wasn't safe anymore, and the magic vanished for over a millennium. No one was performing or even talking about it publicly, and the art stagnated for centuries. Around the 16th century, magic revived. People started to perform the first simple acts like card tricks or making the objects disappear. It was the Second Beginning, the oldest book on magic that's known today. The Discovery of Witchcraft was published in 1584. That book was one of the steps to debunk the myth of illusion magic being something evil and supernatural, logically explaining some well-known magic tricks. With time, people stopped being swindled about magic and the art was taking off again. If I say, picture a magician, what will you imagine? Most likely, it'll be a person wearing a cape and a tall hat, pulling out a rabbit out of that said hat. Well, this magician's appearance, a cape and a tall hat, was popularized in the 19th century by a French magician, Herman the Great. But the rabbit trick in its traditional form was first performed a bit later by a Scottish magician, John Henry Anderson. Did you know that in Queensland, Australia, people aren't allowed to have a pet rabbit? Yes, the only people who can legally keep a rabbit are magicians. And they have to go through a long process and many documents to prove their profession and that they own a rabbit to show to the public. Then, they're granted a license and can officially keep the animal. What did rabbits do wrong? Well, they aren't very welcome there to protect the crops and native animals. For a long time, magic was a street art. But this guy, Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin, changed it forever. He is the father of modern-style illusions, and he managed to bring the art to big stages of theater, performing for big audiences. He was also a great illusionist himself, and, in fact, the most famous magician of all time. Harry Houdini was so fascinated with this person that he chose his stage name in honor of Jean-Eugène Houdin, just adding an I at the end. Harry Houdini started as a card performer, but he soon realized it wasn't his cup of tea. Like most professionals, magicians also need to find their niche, the one they enjoy, the one where they're at their best. but also something new that excites people. And Houdini found it, being an escape artist. He would tie himself up in ropes and chains, immerse himself in water, bury himself in the ground, and somehow magically escape. He even escaped from the belly of some sea monster washed ashore. Historians still aren't sure who that beast was. Someone described it as a turtle, tortoise, fish, or whatever it is, so I can't give you more details than that. Anyways, it was washed ashore and the carcass of the monster was used for the trick. Houdini was shackled and climbed inside the creature. The creature was laced and chained. In about 15 minutes, Houdini reappeared on stage, and the sea monster was still chained. Houdini just asked for some air, saying that he was almost suffocated by the fumes inside. Illusion magic has nothing to do with supernatural powers, and illusionists, who know well that even the most fascinating trick is just a trick and has a logical explanation, are typically very skeptical when they hear that someone claims to have psychic powers. Harry Houdini was a professional skeptic and debunker of spiritualists. He even offered a reward for anyone who can demonstrate supernatural abilities, and he won't find a logical explanation for it. No one has gotten that reward. Today, the challenge is still open, and the prize went up to $1 million. I bet you didn't know it, but magicians were very actively involved in the birth of the movie industry, involved as performers and producers. Harry Houdini acted in several silent films. So, remember that guy, Herman the Great? The one in cape and long hat? He was performing some of his tricks along with his assistant and wife, Adelaide Herman. After he passed, Adelaide continued to perform solo and was one of the brightest stars in the end of the 19th century, owning the title the Queen of Magic. She was one of the few magicians who performed the bullet catch trick, which is considered the hardest trick to perform to this day. Her favorite trick to perform was the Phantom Bride. Here's how it goes. The illusionist makes a body of a bride dressed in white to rise on a brightly lit stage. A hoop passes through the body, showing that there are no wires that make the body levitate. Then, the illusionist pulls away the white silk and the bride disappears. How do they do it? Only the illusionists know. Magicians never reveal their secrets to non-magicians, so all that's left to us is being amazed, which I personally don't mind. Another famous trick, cutting a person in half and putting them back together. The trick was first performed in 1921 by an English magician, P.T. Selbit, and it had a raging success, shocking everyone who'd seen the act. Many illusionists repeated and improved the trick afterwards, but I'm here to tell you one story. In 1956, a guy was performing it on live TV. As soon as he divided his wife in half, the broadcast stopped. The TV viewers were mortified, thinking that something went wrong and the host cut off the show. Turned out everything was fine. The show got cut off because they ran out of time, and the timing wasn't exactly perfect. In the past century, illusions have escalated. Today, professional illusionists throw even more spectacular shows by making cars levitate or planes disappear. One of the most famous modern magicians is David Copperfield. Yes, his stage name is inspired by a Charles Dickens novel. Charles Dickens was actually an illusionist himself back in the day. Just saying. David Copperfield has started with card tricks as well, but his professional specialty are grand illusions. One of his most famous performances is the Escape from Alcatraz, a carefully guarded prison only one prisoner in history managed to escape from. Copperfield did the same, and no other illusionist yet repeated the success. Then, he made a whole plane disappear, which he performed with a live audience and repeated several times. In the 1980s, he made the Statue of Liberty disappear in front of a live audience on Liberty Island. He raised a screen in front of the statues, and when he dropped it, the statue was just gone. Spotlights were passing through, showing that there were no mirrors and that the statue was really gone. Then he raised the sheet again, and when it dropped, it was back. I know. You want to know how he did it. Okay, I'll reveal this one as an exception. Like everything with illusion magic, it didn't vanish. In fact, the statue was hidden in plain sight, behind one of the towers holding up the screen. The bright lights shining through are actually important for the trick. They blind the audience and no one can notice the hidden statue behind the tower. But how did he move the statue? He didn't. He moved the audience. People were standing on a stage that can be rotated. Because of the lights and the loud music, people didn't even notice they were moved and then moved back. Did I ruin the magic for you? Sorry about that. But that'll teach you to never watch trick reveals. Unless you want to become a magician, of course. Magicians even take a magician's oath before another magician can teach them tricks. The oath is to never reveal the secret of the trick to non-magicians so that it doesn't ruin it. Also, it turns out that magic tricks aren't covered by intellectual property laws. If a magician comes up with an original trick, it can be stolen from them by a different magician and there will be no consequences for them. So, be careful if you want to become the next Houdini or David Copperfield.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.